Chapter 12:14. Wei Shiping clenched his fists tightly. He was stuck between a rock and a hard place. If this matter was blown out of proportion, he would be greatly affected. A large part of the reason why he was able to become a strong contender for the position of the next patriarch was because of his outstanding performance in the Spirit Firmament Academy. If the rest of the family Wei knew that he had done such a thing and was hated by the college, then would the family Wei choose such a treacherous person to be the next family head? It was obvious that it was impossible. I did it. Wei Shiping felt as if something was surging in his chest, driving him crazy. I admit it. I did it on purpose to let Jean Lei and the others follow. But I didn't want to betray the college. I just want to teach Rong Xiu a lesson. Even Wei Shiping found it ridiculous when he said this. Teach him a lesson? The one who was going to be taught a lesson was not Rong Xiu, but him. Ever since he entered the college, he had disliked Rong Xiu, because Rong Xiu was always the most outstanding one. No matter how hard others tried, no matter how hard they tried, they always seemed to be inferior to him. The things that others yearned for and couldn't get no matter how hard they tried, he could always get them easily. Everyone was around the same age, and they had entered the college only a few months apart. However, from the beginning until now, Rong Xiu had never seemed to be on the same level as the others. He was extremely talented and powerful. Not to mention, he was now in charge of the Yuntian Tower. Wei Shiping felt that it was unfair. Why? Why is it that Rong Xiu already has everything when I'm still racking my brains on how to curry favor with the Wei family members so that they can support me in becoming the head of the family? But he did not care about that at all. Of course, Wei Shiping hated him. Therefore, at that time, he was blinded by his emotions and did such a stupid thing. Hearing that he had finally relented and admitted it himself, the hall fell silent for a moment. A considerable portion of the people sitting here had been to the Blue Feather Abyss before. The remaining ones had all participated in the chaotic battle in Fangzhou City that day. Therefore, after hearing this, almost everyone looked at Wei Shiping with anger in their eyes. Elder Bo Yin, now that things have come to this, I am willing to accept any punishment. But please don't tell anyone about this. Wei Shiping quickly recognized the situation in front of him. After admitting his crime, he immediately began to beg for mercy. I beg you, please give me a chance on account of my contributions to the academy. Elder Bo Yin replied, there's no such thing as an airtight wall in the world. Besides, as long as you and everyone else try your best to keep the news a secret, I'm willing to do anything. Wei Shiping said anxiously. Since the matter had already been exposed, it was most important to stop the losses in time. As long as they were willing, they could definitely keep this news a secret. If he really couldn't do it, he could at least endure for half a year. In the past 6 months, the competition for the successor of the family Wei had entered its final stage. Any black spot would be magnified infinitely by the opponent. Moreover, this was an absolute stain. At this moment, Wei Shiping didn't know that in the eyes of the crowd, he was no different from a clown. Wei Shiping, do you really think that this matter can be kept a secret? Elder Bo Yin was still unmoved. Wei Shiping suddenly realized something and looked at Rong Xiu. Rong Xiu, you wanted to kill me from the start, didn't you? How could he forget that Rong Xiu was still here? Even if the others were willing to keep this secret, what about Rong Xiu? Rong Xiu leaned back in his chair, his hands crossed in front of him, his entire body exuding an indescribable aura of nobility. This was the arrogance and disdain that was ingrained in his bones. This kind of person, no matter where, no matter the situation, seemed to always have victory in his grasp. Rong Xiu smiled faintly and said, same to you. Wei Shiping wanted to deal with him. How could he not be allowed to retaliate? Moreover, in the end, he only exposed Wei Shiping's actions. He didn't kill him personally. Of course, this was because he knew that using this method would be much more painful than directly killing Wei Shiping. The Academy will not tolerate betrayers. Elder Bo Yin stood up. Wei Shiping had a bad feeling in his heart. Elder Bo Yin, from today onwards, you are no longer a student of Lingxiao College. Later, this old man will personally strike your name from the school's register. From now on, You have nothing to do with Lingxiao College. Wei Shiping's face was pale, his mind blank. This was expelling him from the academy? Without the support of Lingxiao College, he would lose a huge advantage in the competition for the successor of his family. He didn't know how those people would laugh at him. Elder Bo Yin, can you really not give me another chance? He asked with difficulty. Elder Bo Yin narrowed his eyes and said, You have committed such a crime. This is what you deserve. If you want this old man to retract this decision, you must be able to persuade the dean to speak up for you. The dean's position was higher than his, so he naturally had the right to change his decision. But in Wei Shiping's ears, these words were no different from deep mockery. The dean had already left the academy a few years ago, and no one knew where he went. How could he find him to speak up for him? Moreover, based on the dean's temper, he would only give him a more severe punishment. He closed his eyes in despair. Wei Shiping left. No one asked where he was going, and no one sent him off. The news of him being expelled from the academy would spread very quickly, and his reputation in the world of God would be greatly affected because of this. And on the family Wei's side, the situation would only be worse. But these were not matters for the academy to consider. Because of his own selfish motives, he had almost brought a disaster to the academy. This punishment was already considered light. Wei Shiping in the past, although he could not be compared to Rong Xiu, but in the past, he was still able to do it. After the others gradually dispersed, only Elder Bo Yin and Rong Xiu were left on the Dongwang Bell Tower. Rong Xiu, this matter is all thanks to you. Otherwise, it would not be good to leave such a hidden danger. Rong Xiu smiled. The person he is targeting is me, not the academy. With such a temperament, we really can't let him live. Elder Bo Yin shook his head and took out a book. It was a booklet with a simple and unadorned binding. The cover was a hard bronze plate, and the Lingxiao College's totem was engraved on it. The surroundings were faintly golden, solemn, and sacred. This was the academy's name list. Elder Bo Yin opened it and quickly found Wei Shiping's name. He reached out his hand and slowly swiped across it. Wei Shiping's name quietly disappeared. At the same time, on the four walls of the Dongwang Bell Tower, the green cloud ranking suddenly appeared. Sparkling radiance shone. On it, Wei Shiping's name gradually dimmed until it completely disappeared. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 12:15. The commotion on the Azure Cloud leaderboard attracted the attention of many people in the academy. When they saw that Wei Shiping's name had disappeared, everyone was shocked. What's going on? Why did Senior Wei Shiping's name disappear? Only the Dean and Elder Bo Yin can summon the Azure Cloud leaderboard. What were they doing? Could it be that Elder is planning to erase Senior Wei Shiping's name as well? Just like the number 1 on the Celestial Physician list. It's different. That name was covered up by the Dean with a special method, but it didn't actually disappear. But look, all the names below have risen by 1 place. This means that Wei Shiping has been removed for the Azure Cloud leaderboard by Elder Bo Yin. There's only one reason for this. Wei Shiping has been chased out of the academy. A stone stirred up 1,000 ripples. Although it wasn't said clearly, many of the older students in the academy could guess what had happened. It was also because of this that everyone was especially shocked. In Lingxiao College, expelling students was not a rare thing. At the beginning of every month's assessment, those who failed a few times would often encounter such a situation. But those people were forced to leave because they didn't have enough aptitude and couldn't adapt to the pace and environment of the academy. But Wei Shiping was different. He was an extremely famous genius student in the academy in recent years. On the Azure Cloud leaderboard, he was on 2 of the 4 leaderboards and was in the top 10. Such talent and results could be said to be dazzling. Therefore, when his name disappeared from the Azure Cloud leaderboard, it caused such a huge commotion. Outside the square, countless people saw this scene and discussed it. I haven't seen such a situation in a long time, Elder Bo Yin suddenly said. The last time it happened was because her name was erased by the Dean. The commotion at that time was even greater than now. After all, she was the number 1 on the Azure Cloud leaderboard. Every action related to her attracted extra attention. Elder Bo Yin sighed deeply. I wonder where she is now and how she's doing. She seemed to have suddenly disappeared, and there was no trace of her in the world of God ruins. Rongshio looked at the Azure Cloud leaderboard and said calmly, maybe. If she changed her identity, it might not be certain. Elder Bo Yin lowered his head. His old fingers slowly moved across the pages of the book as if he wanted to flip a page. But in the end, he stopped, took a deep breath, and closed the booklet. Maybe. He let out a long sigh. But that child, hiding her identity, doesn't seem to be something she would do. She had always been a troublemaker. Just imagining the scene of her staying there peacefully, it was really strange. Hearing Bo Yan's words, Rongshio that was on the Azure Cloud sect, was on Anon's cloud leaderboard. On the Elder on the leaderboard on Elder said, Rongshio, as he turned around. I want to take care of Chu Yu for a while. Shua. Elder Bo Yin was surprised. You want to take him as your junior? But your master isn't around recently. Rongshio coughed. Chu Yu has his own master, so there's no need to trouble him to join the same master as me. It's just that her personality is a little mischievous, and she easily gets into trouble. So during this period of time, I want to guide her and teach her the rules of the academy, so that she won't be rash and cause trouble like this time. Oh, Elder Bo Yan's expression became strange. Are you sure? Rongshio had a cold personality and hated all kinds of trouble. But this time, he actually took the initiative to teach Chu Yu. It was really rare. It was as if the sun had risen from the west. Rongshio, what's your relationship with that kid? Why are you so concerned about him? Elder Bo Yin was interested and couldn't help but ask. Those who didn't know would think that he was his younger brother. No, according to Rongshio's temper, he wouldn't be like this to his younger brother. How strange. We used to have a relationship. Furthermore, he had saved my life this time. What's more, if I hadn't taught him those messy things before, he wouldn't have been able to cause such a huge mess. I should have been the one to teach him. Rongshio's thin lips raised slightly, revealing a faint smile. Elder Bo Yin couldn't find out anything, and his heart itched. But he also knew that if Rongshio didn't want to say anything, then no one would be able to get anything out of him. So he simply gave up. Since you've said so, this old man naturally has no reason to disagree. When he comes out of Pengmin Mountain, I'll let him go to your place to learn. Rongshio nodded, paused for a moment, and said unintentionally, his place is very far from mine. When the time comes, it will be a waste of time to go back and forth every day. I happen to have a few empty rooms there, so I'll let him stay. Elder Bo Yin was already used to it and waved his hand. Up to you. Anyway, the two of them already knew each other, and Rongshio had even said that he took the initiative to bring that kid. So what difference would there be? That kid has a bright future. You have to teach him well. Rongshio's smile deepened. Definitely. Pengmin Mountain, 7th Tower. In a strange space, Chu Luiwei sat cross-legged. The surrounding heaven and earth force flowed into her body rhythmically with her breathing. She could clearly feel the power flowing through her limbs and bones. Some of the power seeped into her flesh and bones, silently increasing her physical strength. The rest gathered in the water droplet in her dantian. The lines on the surrounding walls also surged around Chu Luiwei in a strange rhythm. After a long time, the old and low voice sounded again. The 1-month period is up. Kid, come out. Everything around her quickly returned to normal. Chu Luiwei slowly opened her eyes. A sharp and cold light flashed through her eyes. She stretched her muscles and bones, and a series of crackling sounds came from her body. This place is indeed extraordinary. She had only stayed here for a month, and there were faint signs of a breakthrough. According to normal calculations, even if she had the Tianjing Yuan Meridian, it should take about 3 months to break through from the middle of the 7th level to the peak of the 7th level. The speed of cultivation here was at least 2 to 3 times faster than outside. This time, she had benefited a lot. More importantly, she remembered many things. Unfortunately, after she remembered the matter of the herb garden, there was no movement on the Black Pyramid. After that, she did not think of anything else. Perhaps, when her strength broke through again, she would remember more. Chu Liwei put away her thoughts, packed up briefly, and prepared to go out. When she reached the door, she looked back again. That familiar and nostalgic feeling surged in her heart again. This time, it was obviously stronger than the first time. Her eyes moved slightly, and she turned to leave. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 12:16. Walking out of the space, Chu Liwei came to the main hall. She stood still, turned around, and cupped her fists in the direction of the 7 doors. Thank you for taking care of me during this period of time. The other party snorted. Kid, don't let me see you again next month. Hearing the strong disdain, Chu Liwei rubbed her nose. She wanted to say, I'll try my best, but after thinking about it, she obediently replied, Yes. Go. Chu Liwei bowed and left obediently. Walking out of the door, Chu Liwei took a deep breath. The fresh and cool air entered her lungs, making her feel refreshed. Putting everything else aside, this 1 month in here seemed to be more comfortable than the previous time. Suddenly, her eyes narrowed as she saw a familiar figure standing outside the barrier. It was Elder Wanzheng. Seeing Chu Liwei come out, Elder Wanzheng's eyes lit up and quickly said, Chu Yu, Master is here. Come quickly. Chu Liwei didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Why did it seem like she had just been released from prison? But seeing Elder Wanzheng's happy look, she couldn't help but be infected. With a move of her feet, she quickly walked towards Elder Wanzheng. Master, why are you here? When she arrived in front of Elder Wanzheng, Chu Liwei couldn't help but ask. Elder Wanzheng looked at her from head to toe as he said, Don't worry. Master has been waiting here since morning. A month was really a long time. He was worried, so he came directly. Anyway, she was his disciple. If he didn't dote on her, who would? Suddenly, his expression froze, and then he widened his eyes slightly and asked in disbelief, Your strength seems to have increased? Chu Liwei pursed her lips and smiled. I haven't officially broken through yet. That means it's soon. Elder Wanzheng blinked his eyes, and his eyes flickered with shock. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. According to the usual practice, most of the students who were imprisoned in Pengmin Mountain would be listless when they came out. Some of them would even be injured more or less. But not only was Chu Yu fine from head to toe, his aura was also much stronger than before. Elder Wanzheng looked at the 7th tower suspiciously. What was going on? Could it be that the old man gave you some face and made things easier for you? Elder Wanzheng murmured. As soon as he said that, he heard the old and deep voice. Wanzheng, what are you daydreaming about? Give him face? What a beautiful dream. Even if Bo Yin was here, he might not give him this face. Not to mention Wanzheng. An awkward expression appeared on Elder Wanzheng's face. If it's not, it's not. Why don't you just say it directly? Why do you have to scold me so harshly? The child is still listening. Chu Liwei was speechless. Elder Wanzheng adjusted his collar. Cough, that disciple, let's ignore him. It's even better if he didn't do it on purpose. What did this prove? To prove that his disciple was capable. Look at how radiant he is. Look at this aura that is getting stronger day by day. He had face. Go. Let's go back with Master. His cultivation as a martial artist might have improved, so might his cultivation as a celestial physician. He also wanted to see if his disciple had broken through to the 9th grade as a celestial physician. Chu Liwei nodded and looked around casually. Elder Wanzheng was stunned and asked, Disciple, who are you looking for? Chu Liwei retracted her gaze and smiled. Nothing, let's go. Elder Wanzheng did not mind. With a move, he took the lead and left. Chu Liwei followed closely behind. Halfway through, Chu Liwei realized that the atmosphere in the academy was a little strange. Master, did anything happen in the academy during this period? Elder Wanzheng nodded and then realized what she was asking. He explained, nothing much. It's just that Wei Shiping was expelled a while ago. Chu Liwei still had some recollection of this name. That man seemed to be of high birth and was highly regarded in the academy. Otherwise, he would not have been allowed to go to Gray Feather's Abyss. Why was he suddenly expelled? What did he do? Oomph. Of course, he did something he shouldn't have done. Elder Wan Zheng sneered. At Gray Feather's Abyss, in order to deal with Rong Xiao, he purposely let Jean Lei and the others catch up. For such an act, just expulsion was already too easy for him. It was a few words, but it was very concise. Chu Liyue quickly understood what was going on. I see. It seems that everyone in the academy already knows about this. Of course. Bo Yin personally erased his name from the green cloud roll. Many people saw it. Elder Wan Zheng shook his head. I used to think that this kid was narrow-minded, arrogant, and jealous. In the end, he did such a thing. If not for Rong Xiao holding back, the academy would have been tricked by him many times. Chu Liyue's heart skipped a beat. This matter was discovered by Rong Xiao? Elder Wan Zheng nodded. The two of them walked for a while before Chu Liyue realized that they were going in the wrong direction. Master, we don't seem to be going to your place? Yes, we're going to your place now. Chu Liyue was stunned. She thought that Elder Wan Zheng rushed over to pick her up early in the morning to bring her back to test her current celestial physician standard. As if he saw through her thoughts, Elder Wan Zheng chuckled. Don't worry, kid. Master doesn't intend to test you. It's just that I chose to go to your place. Chu Liyue smiled and asked, why did Master suddenly want to go to my place? Naturally, it's because you have to pack your things. Elder Wan Zheng stroked his beard. It's a bit of a detour to go to my place. Why not come to your place directly? It's more convenient. Chu Liyue was confused. Pack my things? Me? All right. You don't know about this yet. Elder Wan Zheng slapped his head. After this, you'll be moving in with Rong Xiao. It was rare that Chu Liyue didn't react. She subconsciously asked me, living with Rong Xiao. Why didn't she hear about this at all? It was just a trip to Pengmin Mountain. Why did she have to move all of a sudden? Moreover, she had to move in with Rong Xiao. As one of the top students in the academy, didn't Rong Xiao always live alone? Rong Xiao, seemed to have taken the initiative to mention this to Bo Yin. He said that he planned to stay in the academy to guide you during this period. It's more convenient for you to live with him. As long as he wasn't here to steal his disciple, Elder Wan Zheng welcomed him. Moreover, this person was Rong Xiao. If his precious disciple could learn from Rong Xiao for a period of time, she would definitely benefit immensely from it. This kind of opportunity was hard to come by. Others wouldn't have it even if they wanted it. Why did this kid look like he was startled? Elder Wan Zheng reminded her. Disciple. Even though Rong Xiao majored in martial arts and smithing, he is also quite accomplished in the field of celestial physician. This is a rare opportunity. You have to learn well from him, understand? In the midst of their conversation, the duo had already returned to the familiar mountain. Elder Wan Zheng laughed heartily. Look, Rong Xiao is already waiting for us. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 12:17. Chu Liyue had mixed feelings when she saw the tall man in a white brocade robe halfway up the mountain. A month ago, one of them was the high and mighty senior brother Rong Xiao, and the other was an inexperienced junior brother who had just entered the academy. But now, they were going to live together for no reason. Rong Xiao even said that he would guide her. What happened in the past 30 days? Elder Wan Zheng didn't notice her expression. He laughed and quickly flew over, landing in front of Rong Xiao. Chu Liyue had to follow him. Rong Xiao, you're here so early. Elder Wan Zheng greeted him with a smile. Rong Xiao smiled and nodded. I had nothing to do. I knew that you were going to pick someone up early in the morning, so I came here to wait. I can't let you wait for me, right? Elder Wan Zheng was very happy to hear this. Listen, his words showed that he valued him and his precious disciple. Who else in the entire Ling Xiao Academy could receive such treatment? TSK. Chuyu would definitely learn a lot from him. Hey, Chuyu, why aren't you saying anything when you see Rong Xiao? Elder Wan Zheng urged Chu Liyue to come forward. I remember that you two knew each other before, right? Not only knew each other. Chu Liyue cursed in her heart, but she also put on a smile. Greetings, senior brother Rong Xiao. Rong Xiao's deep eyes swept across her face and body, seeming to be warm. It seems that junior brother Chu Yu has been doing well in Pengmin Mountain. His complexion is better than before, and his strength has increased. And he should have remembered more things. Chu Luiwei raised her eyebrows. I'm not as good as senior brother Rongxiao. He can arrange so many things in a month. Elder Wanzheng faintly felt that the atmosphere between the two was a little strange, but he didn't think much of it and said excitedly, Disciple, come and refine the pill. Let me see how your cultivation is now. In fact, when he saw Chu Luiwei coming out of Pengmin Mountain today, he already felt that she should be stable. But if he didn't confirm it himself, he would feel uneasy. Chu Luiwei knew that he must have been thinking about this matter for a month, so she nodded gently. Okay. This time, Chu Luiwei chose the pill that she didn't finish refining. On the one hand, she hadn't used up all the medicinal herbs from last time. There was still a lot left, so she could use them and save a lot of trouble. On the other hand, in Elder Wanzheng's eyes, she only knew how to refine one type of grade 9 pill, so it was reasonable for her to choose this one. When everything was ready, Chu Luiwei started to refine the medicine. It was probably because her strength in all aspects had increased in this 1 month, so the refining of this pill was much smoother than the last time. Taking the medicine, everything was proceeding in an orderly manner. Elder Wanzheng was satisfied with the result. Xiao, when this kid was handling the medicinal ingredients, he was obviously much more skillful than the last time. His control over the flames could be said to be perfect. Originally, he was a little worried that after being locked up in Min Mountain for a month, this kid would forget everything that happened before. Now, he could finally relax. Elder Wanzheng couldn't help but show off to Rongxiao, who was beside him. Rongxiao, what do you think of my new disciple? Rongxiao raised his brows slightly, and his lips curved up into a light smile. Very good. She is indeed outstanding, better than thousands of others. Elder Wanzheng chuckled. I almost forgot that you two knew each other before. Then you must have already known about this kid's talent in this aspect. Rongxiao smiled, but didn't say anything. Obviously, he had tacitly agreed. Elder Wanzheng stroked his beard. I've never heard you mention such an outstanding junior before. Rongxiao, you should have let him come to the academy earlier. Of course, it was not too late. Chu Yu is only 16 years old. He still has a lot of potential in the future. At this moment, a faint medicinal fragrance filled the air. It was Chu Luiwei who had started to form the pill. Seeing the fist-sized pill floating quietly in the red flame, Elder Wanzheng couldn't help but rub his hands. It seemed that this time, he was really going to succeed. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but grin and said to Rongxiao, You don't know. Actually, when Chu Yu tried to refine this pill for the first time, he almost succeeded. Unfortunately, Hua Feng, that blabbermouth, suddenly ran over and said that you were besieged. This kid was distracted for a moment, and the pill was ruined at the last step. Sigh, otherwise he might have broken through to become a 9th grade celestial physician at that time. Rongxiao squinted his phoenix-like eyes, and a hint of a smile appeared in the corners of his eyes. His originally cold and unapproachable face instantly became lively. Oh, is that so? His voice was deep and pleasant. It seems that junior brother Chu Yu is very concerned about my matter. Of course. Otherwise, he wouldn't have suddenly failed at that time. Elder Wanzheng didn't notice that something was wrong and nodded in agreement. This kid lied to me that he would go back and practice alchemy, but in fact, he secretly ran out. Now that I think about it, it was clearly because he was worried about you. Otherwise, why would Chu Yu appear beside Rongxiao at that time? With his rank 7 realm, he would not know how dangerous the battle would be, but he still went. This was enough to explain everything. Rongxiao's smile deepened. Bang! Chu Luiwei slammed his palm on the medicine cauldron. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 12:18. A pill the size of a longan shot up into the sky. Chu Luiwei grabbed the pill and kept it back into the jade box. The series of actions were done in one go, leaving only the lingering medicinal fragrance in the air. Elder Wanzheng's attention was finally attracted. He stared at the jade box in Chu Yue's hands, even more nervous than when he was refining the pill himself. Chu Liwei walked over and handed the jade box over. Master! Elder Wanzhong was about to reach out his hand, but he quickly wiped it on his clothes before carefully taking the jade box. He took a deep breath to calm himself down. Click! The jade box was opened. The medicinal fragrance refreshed the heart. A perfectly round pill was lying quietly in the middle. The pill was sky blue in color, and its color was even and rich. Most importantly, there were 9 lines on it. Elder Wanzhong's eyes lit up with joy. Grade 9. Grade 9. Although it was a lower grade 9, it was indeed a grade 9. Even though he had already expected this outcome, Elder Wanzhong was still overjoyed when he saw the grade 9 pill for real. It's done. Disciple, you didn't disappoint me. A 16-year-old grade 9 celestial physician was definitely one of the best in the entire academy. Haha. At the beginning of the next month, ascending the ascension rankings probably wouldn't be a difficult thing. When the time comes, many people's jaws will drop. Let those old fogies be envious. Rongxiao, tell me, how was Chu Yu's pill refining this time? Elder Wanzhong asked excitedly. It was inevitable that he wanted to show off after getting an outstanding disciple. Moreover, this person was Rongxiao. Very good. Rongxiao smiled and nodded. Congratulations, Elder Wanzhong. With your guidance, junior brother Chu Yu's future will be limitless. Ha ha ha. This kid is really good. Elder Wanzhong held the pill in his hand and couldn't bear to let it go. He couldn't wait to let everyone in the academy know that his precious disciple had broken through to become a 9th grade celestial physician. Most people would experience many failures when they try to cross this hurdle. However, Chuning was different. Including the times before, the number of times he failed did not exceed 5. It's really not easy to find a satisfactory disciple these days. In the past, the dean had gotten ahead of him. Fortunately, he didn't let this brat escape this time. Rongxiao's eyes flickered. Chu Liwei suddenly asked, Master that time? Who are you talking about? Elder Wanzhong's laughter stopped abruptly. Only then did he remember that he had brought up the matter of the past in a moment of happiness. He coughed and covered it up. Cough, it's nothing. It's something that happened a few years ago. I just mentioned it casually. I didn't mean to compare you with others. Elder Wanzhong looked at Chu Liwei's expression and felt a little guilty, so he quickly explained. I promise that you'll be the best at my side. Chu Liwei knew that Elder Wanzhong had misunderstood. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but a warm feeling welled up in her heart. She wanted to continue asking, but when she saw Elder Wanzhong's nervous expression, she swallowed her words subconsciously. She nodded slightly. Thank you, Master. There's no need to thank me. Elder Wanzhong saw that she didn't seem to care about this matter and heaved a sigh of relief. He secretly told himself not to speak carelessly in the future. Actually, I didn't teach you anything. You were able to successfully break through because of your intelligence and hard work. Elder Wanzhong knew very well. Chu Yu had only been in the academy for less than 2 months, and most of his time was spent in Pengmin Mountain. He didn't have much time to cultivate and learn from him. In fact, he really didn't do much. To a large extent, Chu Yu was able to break through to become a 9th grade celestial physician so quickly because of himself. But Elder Wanzhong still felt honored and overjoyed. He had a premonition that this child would become a great person in the future. All right, since you've already broken through and refined this pill, we'll stop here for today. It's getting late, so you should go back with Rongxiao first, familiarize yourself with the environment, and learn from him. I'll adjust your curriculum, and we'll talk about it later. This child's talent was more outstanding than he had expected, so he had to adjust his plan. Chu Liwei raised her eyebrows and looked at Rongxiao. Your senior Rongxiao is also quite accomplished in celestial physician. You'll definitely learn a lot from him. Elder Wanzhong patted Chu Liwei's shoulder and said earnestly, his eyes filled with high hopes for her. Chu Liwei narrowed her eyes. She had to admit that Rongxiao was almost perfect in the eyes of the Academy's elders. So, no matter what he did, not only would he not arouse the elders' suspicion, but he would also receive their strong support. The only thing she could do was to agree. So she nodded. Then, from now on, I'll be in your care, Senior Rong Xiao. Elder Wan Zheng quickly left after returning the pill to Chu Luiwei. Seeing how hurried and happy he was when he left, Chu Luiwei could roughly guess what he was going to do. Looks like it won't be long before many people in the academy know that you've broken through to become a 9th-grade celestial physician. Rong Xiao raised his eyebrows. Chu Luiwei looked at him, and her lips curved up slightly. Before that, more people should know that I'm staying at your place, right? If this news spread, it would cause as much of a stir as if she had refined a 9th-grade pill. Rong Xiao didn't deny it. Instead, he chuckled. It's natural for us to stay together, isn't it? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1219. Chu Luiwei looked at him quietly with a smile that was not a smile. Rong Xiao, do you really think so? Rong Xiao's eyes moved slightly as he looked at her. The two of them looked at each other, and in an instant, there seemed to be an invisible wave circulating around the two of them. What do you want to ask? Rong Xiao said softly. Chu Luiwei looked into his eyes, as if she wanted to see through his eyes and see through the deepest thoughts in his heart. She asked softly, I've been to that herb garden before. Why didn't you mention it before? On a mountain peak in the warrior area, Luo Shishir and Zhuo Sheng were fighting. Elder Wenci had recently taught them a new martial skill, and the two of them were studying it. Sparring with each other could often speed up their understanding, which was very beneficial for cultivation. The two of them flipped around, one attacking the other, fighting fiercely. There were several times in the middle when Zhuo Sheng revealed flaws and was almost defeated by Luo Shishir. However, he managed to hold on, and at the end, he took advantage of Luo Shishir's almost exhausted strength to launch a counterattack and narrowly won by half a move. I lost. Luo Shishir was sweating profusely and her cheeks were red. It could be seen that she had indeed done her best in this battle. However, there was no joy on Zhuo Sheng's face. Instead, he shook his head with a sigh. If I wasn't a few years older than you and broke through to stage 9 earlier, I'm afraid I wouldn't be your match in today's battle. Sure. You've improved so much compared to before. If this continues, you should be able to catch up to me and surpass me in no time. Luo Shishir pursed her lips and smiled. Brother Sheng's foundation is solid and his strength is tyrannical. How can he be caught up so easily? I still have a lot to learn. Zhuo Sheng laughed. Why be modest? I'm also proud that you can improve so quickly. We grew up together, so I know your talent and potential too well. If not, why would your father and the others agree to let you specialize in martial arts? The Luo family specialized in Xian masters. Most of the disciples in the clan had good talent in this area. For example, Luo Yanlin and Luo Yanming had both gone to learn Xian masters. However, Luo Shishir was different. Her talent as a martial artist was far greater than her talent as a mystic cultivator. Therefore, the Luo family had agreed to wait for her to enter Lingxiao College so that she could cultivate as a martial artist. As long as you cultivate well in the academy, you will definitely achieve great things in the future. Zhuo Sheng said, perhaps at that time, you'll be the first amongst us to ascend the Ascension rankings. To them, being able to ascend the Ascension rankings was an extremely great affirmation and glory. Luo Shishir thought for a moment and smiled. Not necessarily. I heard that last time, Chuyu was almost able to refine a 9th-grade medicinal pill. Furthermore, his talent in other aspects seems to be very outstanding as well. In my opinion, it is more likely that he will be the first to enter the rankings. Zhuo Sheng stroked his chin and nodded as he recalled the scene he had seen earlier. That's true. That brat really hit it well. When he comes out, I must ask him how strong he is. Luo Shishir suddenly froze. Wait, isn't today the day he's coming out? Zhuo Sheng slapped his head. That seems to be the case. I've been thinking about that martial technique for the past 2 days and actually forgot about this. Luo Shishir thought for a moment and said, why don't we go and see him? Sure. I heard that the punishment in Pengmin Mountain is very severe. I wonder how he is now. The two of them reached an agreement and planned to set off. However, They had just taken a few steps when they heard a strange voice coming from the side. Huh, Chuyu is very powerful now. There's no need for you to worry about him. The two of them turned their heads and saw a familiar face. It was Gong Sheng and Lu Yintong. There were a few people following behind the two of them. It seemed that they happened to be passing by. Luo Shishir and Zhuo Sheng did not have a good impression of them. Hearing this, Zhuo Sheng frowned. What do you mean? Gong Sheng sneered. Don't you know? Chuyu has already climbed onto the coattails of senior brother Rong Xiao. So what if he is imprisoned in Pengmin Mountain? With such a backer, Chuyu will be able to do whatever he wants in the academy in the future. Luo Shishir and Lu Yintong looked at each other with blank expressions. How did this have anything to do with senior brother Rong Xiao? This meant that Chuyu and senior brother Rong Xiao. Aren't you two good friends of Chuyu? How come you don't even know about such big news? Although Gong Sheng was still smiling, the ridicule on his face was very strong. Just now, senior brother Rong Xiao personally brought Chuyu back to his residence. I heard that Chuyu will be staying there for a period of time, and senior brother Rong Xiao even plans to personally guide him. Right now, the entire academy has spread the news. Luo Shishir and Lu Yintong really didn't know anything about this matter. They had been diligently cultivating recently and didn't pay much attention to the outside world. It was normal for them not to hear about this. However, this news truly shocked the two of them. The two of them looked at each other and saw the disbelief in each other's eyes. What? What was going on? That brat's luck is really good. He took a risk and found himself such a powerful backer. With Rong Xiao's protection, who would dare to find trouble with Chuyu in the academy in the future? Those who tried to curry favor with him were probably the descendants of his talent. Even if he was unwilling to accept it, Gong Sheng understood in his heart that from now on, they would no longer be able to obtain any benefits from Chuyu. Originally, he had wanted to wait for a chance to teach him a lesson and let him know how powerful he was. Who would have thought that before they could do anything, Chuyu would be one step ahead of them and take the initiative? It would be a lie to say that they weren't angry, and it would be a lie to say that they weren't jealous. Zhuo Sheng quickly reacted. Seeing the unconcealable ridicule and jealousy on Gong Sheng and the others' faces, he couldn't help but snort. That's because Chuyu has the ability. There are so many people in the academy. Why did senior brother Rong Xiao take a fancy to him? Some people don't have the ability or courage to do so, and only dare to talk behind their backs. It's truly despicable. Gong Sheng and the others' faces changed. What did you say? I'm talking about those despicable people, not you. Senior brothers and sisters, why are you in such a hurry to take a seat? Zhuo Sheng wasn't afraid of them. Just Luo Yinlin alone was enough to make these people fearful, not to mention the addition of Rong Xiao. If these people hadn't taken the initiative to cause trouble back then, they wouldn't have formed a grudge with Chuyu. Everything that happened today was because they reaped what they sowed. Gong Sheng wanted to say more, but was stopped by Lu Yintong. All right, let's go first. Gong Sheng was furious, but when he turned his head and saw Lu Yintong's expression, he could only suppress his anger. He gritted his teeth and pointed at Zhuo Sheng. You guys can be arrogant. I want to see if Chuyu will still put you guys in his eyes with Rong Xiao as his backer. Let's wait and see. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1220. After Lu Yintong and the others left, they all fell into a strange silence. Although they were very angry when they quarreled with Zhuo Sheng, they knew in their hearts that no matter how much they mocked Chuyu, with Rong Xiao's protection, he would really become an existence that could not be casually provoked in the academy. And this group of people just happened to offend Chuyu not long ago. Even they did not dare to say what would happen in the future. Gong Sheng was especially depressed and irritated. He followed beside Lu Yintong. As long as he turned his face, he could see her tightly knitted brows. Although she was also walking forward, she looked a little absent-minded, as if she had something on her mind. How could Gong Sheng not know what she was thinking? It was precisely because he knew that he felt even more uncomfortable. It was all because of that person. After walking for a while, the anger in Gong Sheng's heart rose instead of subsiding. His chest was pounding, almost rushing out his chest. He finally could not help but look back at those people. You guys go first. I have something to discuss with Atong. Seeing his ugly expression, those people did not dare to ask any more questions. They responded and quickly left. Soon, only the two of them were left on the mountain. Lu Yintong looked at him strangely. What's wrong? Gong Sheng suppressed his anger. Atong, are you still thinking about Rong Xiao? A trace of embarrassment flashed across Lu Yintong's eyes as she looked away. I don't know what you're talking about. Gong Sheng raised his voice. Isn't that so? Ever since he came back, I'm afraid you've been thinking about how to talk to him, haven't you? It's a pity that even though you're so obsessed with him, he might not even remember what you look like. Atong, why do you have to do this? Lu Yintong's expression became a little ugly. I'm just thinking about Chuyu. If you didn't suddenly get involved with Rong Xiao, you wouldn't think so much, right? Gong Sheng knew her too well. Even though Rong Xiao had left the academy for a few years, his appearance could still cause a commotion. And Lu Yintong was among them. Lu Yintong turned her head away and defended herself. I'm just a little regretful. I shouldn't have offended Chuyu so rashly. Now that he is such a backer, what are you regretting? What are you afraid of? Gong Sheng suddenly twitched the corner of his mouth and smiled sarcastically. Are you afraid that he will speak ill of you in front of Rong Xiao? But do you think Rong Xiao, with his temperament and bearing, will care about this kind of thing? To him, we're just passers-by who have no sense of existence. No matter how much Chuyu belittled you in front of him, would it still have any effect? Rong Xiao couldn't possibly come and find trouble with them just to help Chuyu vent his anger. In other words, even if you curry favor with Chuyu, he will praise you in front of Rong Xiao. Will Rong Xiao look at you more? The more Gong Sheng spoke, the worse Lu Yintong's expression became. In the end, she clenched her fists tightly and her body trembled slightly. And don't forget, Rong Xiao already has a princess. Slap. Lu Yintong slapped Gong Sheng's face. Gong Sheng's face quickly became red and swollen. I know all this. I don't need you to teach me a lesson. Lu Yintong threw down these words. Her face was cold, and her lips were pale as she turned and left. Gong Sheng subconsciously raised his foot and wanted to chase after her. But after taking a step, he stopped. Looking at the figure walking further and further away, a trace of pain flashed in his eyes, and he finally walked in another direction. When Luo Shishir and Gong Sheng arrived at the mountain peak where Rong Xiao was, Jiuheng Peak, they saw that many people had already gathered here. Everyone looked at Jiuheng Peak with shock and doubt. Obviously, they had also hurried over after hearing the news. There were low voices of discussion in the crowd. Everyone says that Rong Xiao will personally take Chuyu. Is it true? Of course it's true. When they came back to Jiuheng Peak together, many people saw it. And it seems that Chuyu will be staying at Rong Xiao's place for a long time. Didn't they say that Rong Xiao has always been cold and arrogant? It's difficult for many people to get close to him. Why is he willing to take a new student now? I heard that Chuyu helped Rong Xiao block a critical blow, which can be considered a merit. Could it be? Because of this? TSK. Rong Xiao is the holy son of Yuntian Tower. With one order, there will be waves of people who want to die for him. Who would he value so much for such a small matter? I heard some rumors saying that Chuyu originally knew Rong Xiao. Is it true? How come I've never heard of it before? I thought that Chuyu was just an ordinary person with no background. TSK. Can an ordinary person have a contracted divine beast like the red-tailed phoenix? Can an ordinary person defeat a rank 8 warrior with the power of a rank 7 warrior? From Senior Rong Xiao's attitude, it's not hard to tell that they definitely didn't just meet this time. Everyone was discussing and making all kinds of guesses. Luo Shishir and Shui Sheng looked at each other. Although they were more familiar with Chuyu, they really didn't know anything about Chuyu's background. Looks like I really have to ask this kid later. Shui Sheng touched his chin. If he really has a close relationship with Rong Xiao, then isn't he too low-key before? If it was anyone else, they would have already been unable to hold back and spread the news on the first day of entering the academy. Luo sure fell into deep thought. From the first time she saw Chu Yu, she knew that he must have an extraordinary background, but she didn't expect that it would be related to Senior Rong Xiao. Others might still be guessing, but she was already very sure in her heart, because whether it was Senior Rong Xiao or Chu Yu, they were definitely not the kind of people who would do such a thing for a stranger. They must be familiar with each other in the past. It was even possible that their relationship was not shallow. Jiang Zhuan claimed to be Senior Rong Xiao's childhood sweetheart, and there was even news that she would be the princess of Yintian Tower. But what about Rong Xiao's attitude towards her? From what she could see, Rong Xiao obviously didn't put Jiang Zhuan in his eyes. But Chu Yu is different. Rong Xiao was willing to spend such patience and energy to personally guide him, which proved that Chu Yu's relationship with him must be much better than Jiang Zhuan's. But what was Chu Yu's identity to be able to receive such good treatment from Senior Rong Xiao? It was a pity that outsiders couldn't enter Jiuheng Mountain at will, so they had no way of knowing the situation inside. Someone asked in a low voice, "Senior Rong Xiao and Chu Yu have been in for a long time. Why haven't they come out yet?" The outside world was noisy and isolated. In the room, Rong Xiao and Chu Luiwei sat facing each other. Chu Luiwei said, "I've already followed you. Now, can you explain?" Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1221. Rong Xiao did not give a direct answer to her previous question. She had been to the herb garden. Rong Xiao lowered his eyes slightly. He had already thought that Chu Luiwei should have remembered something after coming out of Mount Pengmin, but he did not expect that she would remember so much. After pondering for a moment, he raised his eyes and asked, "Other than the fact that you have been to the herb garden, do you remember anything else?" Chu Luiwei raised her eyebrows slightly. As intelligent as she was, she could naturally tell that Rong Xiao was testing her. She said, "No, I only remember that I picked herbs in that herb garden." After a pause, she continued, "That herb garden, logically speaking, other than its owner, no one else can enter at will, right?" Rong Xiao leaned back in his chair and pondered for a moment. "That's right. Generally speaking, that is indeed the case. However, it's not like no one in the academy has ever entered it before, because the land of the herb garden was personally moved out by the dean back then. Although it has only been a few years, there is no lack of all kinds of precious herbs. Some of them were specially taken care of by the dean. Therefore, there are also some people in the academy who will go to the herb garden to find some herbs. Of course, this requires the consent of the owner of the herb garden. There are not many people who can really get the herbs from it. Moreover, that place itself is next to the Medicine Wind Valley. Some people lose their way in the Medicine Wind Valley and accidentally enter that place." Chu Luiwei nodded thoughtfully. Senior brother Zhong Sun seems to be in such a situation. It seems that there are quite a few people who have been to that herb garden. She stared at Rong Xiao. "So you're saying that I entered the medicinal garden because of these two situations?" Rong Xiao paused for a moment. "You really like to go there to pick herbs?" Chu Luiwei suddenly stood up and walked towards Rong Xiao. She stood in front of Rong Xiao, then bent down and looked straight into Rong Xiao's eyes. The two of them were extremely close to each other. It was as if they could touch each other if they moved. They could smell each other's breathing. Her eyes, which had always been as bright as stars, were now deep and serene. Rong Xiao's expression suddenly changed. "You, not only do I like to go there to pick herbs, but I also seem to like taking care of the herbs there? Ordinary people shouldn't have such qualifications, right?" Chu Luiwei said slowly. Rong Xiao's heart skipped a beat. As expected, she remembered more. From the octagonal pavilion on the cliff, you can directly cross the mountains and see the magnificent scenery in the medicinal garden. You can also directly fly over from there. It's extremely simple and convenient. Rong Xiao's hand slowly tightened. Someone who can make the dean of Lingxiao College specially open up a medicinal garden for him must have a bad temper. I don't think he's someone who would allow anyone to come in and out of his territory. Chu Luiwei said slowly. Her red lips curled into a faint smile. Unless that's his place to begin with. Rong Xiao, Chu Liwa looked at him and said word by word. The person whose name was erased from the honor roll of Azure Sky was me, wasn't it? Even though this sounded unbelievable, when all the other explanations were eliminated, then, no matter how impossible it was, the remaining one had to be the real answer. The room fell into a dead silence. Rong Xiu relaxed his body and leaned completely against the back of the chair. He raised his head slightly. An extremely faint smile appeared on his noble and enchanting face. It seemed like he was surprised, but also relieved. Yes. Time passed, torturous and slow. The sun was setting outside the window, and the remaining light shone in. Chu Luiwei, who had been sitting stiffly for an entire afternoon, finally exhaled slowly. It was rare for her to have such free time. She didn't cultivate, didn't comprehend Xian formations, and didn't study alchemy. She just sat there and let her mind go blank. No, it wasn't that she didn't think of anything. The words that Rong Xiu said and those incomplete memories kept replaying in her mind. But at this moment, she still felt that it was unreal, as if it was just a dream. But she knew it wasn't. That was all real. The person who was taken in as a disciple by the dean of Lingxiao College was her. The owner of the medicinal garden was her. The person who was erased from the honor roll of Azure Sky was her. To her, that person was originally just a legend that made people marvel at him. After hearing many things about that person, the thought of seeing that person with her own eyes flashed past her mind. But in the end, she was actually that person. Chu Luiwei closed her eyes. Until now, she still felt that this matter was too mysterious, to the point that even she herself was in disbelief. However, after solving this huge question, even more questions arose. For example, the ranking on the honor roll of Azure Sky. She only remembered that when she was betrayed by Shangwan Wan and the others, she was a 9th grade celestial physician, a 9th grade martial artist, and a 9th grade Xian master. But with this level of strength, at most, she would be at the bottom of the honor roll of Azure Sky. It was impossible for her to be ranked at the top, and some even occupied the first place. According to Rong Xiu's words and her own memories, she first came to the Divine Ruins world and spent some time here before returning to the Tianling dynasty. And this time, she never came back. But after she returned, why did her strength in all aspects regress? Furthermore, he had completely forgotten about everything that had happened in the Divine Ruins world. Chu Luiwei couldn't understand. Putting everything else aside, just the martial artist aspect. According to her ranking on the honor roll of Azure Sky, she should have already become a god-level expert. Then, how did she fall back to a 9th grade martial artist? Countless questions swirled in her mind. After thinking for a while, she suddenly stood up and walked outside. Almost at the same time, Rong Xiu also walked out of the room next door. "Where are you going?" Rong Xiu asked. Chu Luiwei pursed her lips. Qingming Square. After a pause, she continued, "I just want to take a look first." Although the herb garden was hers, it was really inconvenient for her to go there with her current identity. There were many other places that were not convenient for her to go now. After thinking about it, Qingming Square was the most suitable. Although ordinary students could not casually step into that place, it was still good to take a look. Vaguely, there seemed to be something urging her from the bottom of her heart. Rong Xiu smiled, his phoenix eyes revealing a look of understanding. "I'll take you there." With his status, it was no problem for him to go there. Chu Luiwei hesitated for a moment before nodding in agreement. It was already evening, and the sky was about to turn dark. There was almost no one around Qingming Square. However, Rong Xiu's every move in the academy was closely watched, so after the two of them came out of Mount Jiuing together, they attracted the attention of many people. There were even some who quietly followed them here. The two of them didn't care about this. Chu Luiwei walked to the edge of the square and stood still. Rong Xiu looked at her. "Do you want to take a closer look?" Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1222. Chu Luiwei nodded. Rong Xiu took the lead and walked forward. Chu Luiwei hesitated for a moment before following him. Both of them knew that she didn't come here to see Qingming Square, but the Azure Cloud Proclamation on the Dongwang Bell Tower. But at this moment, the Azure Cloud Proclamation was hidden, and nothing could be seen from the outside. Only the black wall was left, deep and restrained, dignified and dignified. They walked to the front of the Dongwang Bell Tower and stood still. Chu Luiyue looked up. This was originally the location of the Celestial Physician's ranking. She still clearly remembered the shock she felt when she saw the Azure Cloud Proclamation for the first time after coming to the Academy. At this moment, even though the Azure Cloud Proclamation wasn't summoned, but when she looked at it again, her feelings were completely different. She raised her head and looked at the highest position. There was nothing unusual there, but her name was sealed there. Looks like the news of Senior Rong Xiu personally guiding Chu Yu is true. Why are they here at this time? Could it be that they want to see the Azure Cloud Proclamation? But if the elders don't summon them, the Azure Cloud Proclamation won't appear. What's there to see in this pitch-black place? What's so important about that? Who in the entire academy doesn't know that Senior Rong Xiu occupied 2 first places on the Azure Cloud Proclamation? Even if the Azure Cloud Proclamation doesn't appear, this is an indisputable fact. I guess Senior Rong Xiu wants to use this to motivate Chu Yu. I also want to see the Azure Cloud Proclamation with Senior Rong Xiu. I also want to be guided by Senior Rong Xiu. You? Let's talk about it when your talent is comparable to Chu Yu's. That Chu Yu's talent is not bad, but it's not to the point of angering the gods. If I work hard, I might not be inferior to him. I really don't know what Senior Rong Xiu sees in him. Outside Qingming Square, many people were discussing. In the past few years, Senior Rong Xiu had almost never returned to the academy, and the few times he appeared, he accompanied the elders. He had never appeared together with an ordinary student before. Moreover, this person was a new student who had only been in the academy for 2 months. This scene was truly too strange and shocking, so it was naturally unavoidable for it to arouse the discussion of everyone. These voices occasionally reached Chu Luiyue's ears. But right now, she didn't want to care about that. Something seemed to be driving her from the depths of her heart. She took a deep breath, raised her hand, and reached forward. Rong Xiu narrowed his eyes, but did not stop him. Just like that, Chu Luiyue's hand finally touched the cold and thick wall. Wang. Within his dantian, there was a sudden fluctuation. It came from the Black Pyramid. Chu Luiyue's heart began to beat rapidly, and the blood in his body began to surge. At the same time, the wall beneath her palm seemed to have received some sort of summons. An extremely familiar fluctuation came out from it and poured into Chu Luiyue's palm. That was her power. Only those whose names were engraved on the honor roll of Azure Clouds would have such a connection with it. A glimmer of light suddenly came out from between her fingers. Chu Luiyue was shocked. Before she could react, Rong Xiu took a step forward and also covered the wall with his hand. It was only an inch away from Chu Luiyue's hand. In the next moment, the light under Chu Luiyue's palm quickly dissipated. As for that fluctuation, it was covered by an even more powerful force. Almost at the same time, a gray figure suddenly flew out from the Dongwang Bell Tower. It was Elder Bo Yin, who summoned the honor roll of Azure Clouds. A deep and powerful voice reverberated throughout the square. The surrounding crowd was shocked. They couldn't help but take a few steps back. Chu Luiyue was also affected by this vast power, and the blood in her body began to surge uncontrollably, rushing towards her heart. In an instant, it was as if there was a heavy force pressing down on her heart. Rong Xiu's sleeves fluttered, and an invisible fluctuation spread out, blocking that shocking pressure. Chu Luiyue then heaved a sigh of relief. Almost subconsciously, she retracted her hand. Elder Bo Yin quickly landed not far away from the two of them. Rong Xiu turned around and took a step forward, quietly blocking Chu Luiyue behind him. Greetings to Elder Bo Yin. Rong Xiu? Surprise flashed across Elder Bo Yin's eyes. Why are you here, Chu Yu? Actually, when he heard Rong Xiu's voice, he had already recognized him. But he didn't expect Chu Yu to be standing beside him. Looking at the two of them, it seemed like they had just arrived. That move just now, was it you? Elder Bo Yin put his hands behind his back and looked up at the Dongwang Bell Tower. The Azure Cloud leaderboard hadn't appeared yet, and that faint fluctuation had already dissipated. If it wasn't for the fact that he happened to be on top of the Dongwang Bell Tower, it would have been difficult for him to detect that subtle movement. Rongxiu nodded. It's me. Elder Bo Yin walked over. Why did you do this all of a sudden? Usually, only the dean could summon the Azure Cloud leaderboard. Now that the dean wasn't around, he temporarily took over this responsibility. But in reality, other than him, there were a few people who could do this. Rongxiu, who occupied the first place of 2 of the 4 leaderboards, was one of them. Rongxiu's thin lips curled up slightly, and he smiled faintly. I wanted to bring Junior Chuyu over to take a look. Was he trying to use himself as an example to motivate Chuyu? Elder Bo Yin muttered to himself. Although it sounded a little strange, Rongxiu had always done things like this. Plus, he had previously revealed that he wanted to guide Chuyu, so it wasn't strange that he would do this. Oh, looks like you really have high hopes for Chuyu. If I remember correctly, he seemed to have just come out from Hongmin Mountain today. I didn't expect you to bring him here directly. It was already the end of the month, and there were only a few days left until the beginning of the month. At that time, even if Rongxiu didn't take the initiative, he would summon the Azure Cloud leaderboard. As if seeing through his thoughts, Rongxiu raised his brows slightly. It's quieter this way. Elder Bo Yin was speechless for a moment. If it was someone else who said this, it would seem arrogant and presumptuous. But this person was Rongxiu, so everything seemed to become reasonable. After all, he really had the right to say such words. That's true. Elder Bo Yin nodded and carefully sized up Chu Luiwei. Speaking of which, this was the first time he was observing Chuyu at such a close distance. Although he had seen him before, he had never been able to take a good look. The young man had delicate features, a clean temperament, and a generous bearing. Just from the surface, no one would have guessed that he actually had the guts to cause so much trouble. Chuyu, Rongxiu thinks highly of you. You have to work hard to cultivate, and don't let him down. As he spoke, he raised his chin and said with interest, I heard from Wan Zheng that you can already refine 9th grade pills. Why don't you try and see if you can get on the Azure Cloud leaderboard? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1223. He was a mysterious and powerful existence in the Red Moon Desert. He was a top expert who could forcefully reconstruct his divine body. He could freely enter and leave Lingxiao College without being detected by anyone. Or rather, no one dared to detect him. Why was she familiar with such a person? Moreover, he had helped her so many times before and after. Chu Luiwei didn't understand. When she found out that the person whose name could be hidden on the green cloud roll was her, the identities of the people around her became more and more strange and worth investigating. The door of the room was tightly shut. There was dead silence all around. Duga Mabao's demonic purple eyes flickered with a faint light. There was still no expression on his cute little face. Duga Mabao, he said. Chu Luiwei raised her eyebrows. Is that your real name? Or do you have another identity? Duga Mabao narrowed his eyes. What do you want to ask? Naturally, it's something I should know. Chu Luiwei smiled. You should have known that I was on the green cloud roll long ago, right? Duga Mabao didn't say anything. This was obviously a tacit admission. Then let's change the question. Chu Luiwei thought for a moment. When did we meet? Was it after I came to the Divine Ruins world? Of course, I'm talking about the last time. Duga Mabao shook his head and said lightly, no. It was a little earlier than that, in the Red Moon Desert. Chu Luiwei was stunned. Red Moon Desert? Not in the Divine Ruins world. Duga Mabao walked to a chair and sat down very calmly. I was trapped in the Red Moon Desert for many years. I was finally able to leave after reconstructing my divine body. How could I meet you in the Divine Ruins world? Chu Luiwei frowned, and countless thoughts flashed through her mind. Looking at Duga Mabao, he didn't seem to be lying. Moreover, with his strength and identity, there was no need for him to lie to her about such things. Then did they really know each other in the Red Moon Desert? But why didn't she have this memory? Then you and Lingxiao College. Chu Luiyue pursed her lips. She had originally thought that Duga Mabao was the dean of Lingxiao College, who was also her master. But judging from his answer, that wasn't the case. Duga Mabao seemed to have guessed her thoughts. His eyelids drooped slightly, and his thick and long eyelashes fluttered gently, hiding the slight fluctuation in his eyes. When he looked up again, the color of his eyes had returned to normal. I was indeed a student of Lingxiao College, but that was a long time ago, he said calmly. However, Chu Luiyue seemed to hear a sigh of the passage of time. It should really be quite long, right? Chu Luiyue thought to himself. If that was the case, then no matter what Duga Mabao's identity was, he could be considered an elder of Lingxiao College. It was understandable that Elder Wanzhong would be so respectful towards him. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but ask, "Then why were you trapped in the Red Moon Desert?" "Oh right, there's also Senior Diwu and Senior Lan Xiao. It's just an old matter. Let's not talk about it." It was rare for Duga Mabao to interrupt Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue paused. She rarely saw Duga Mabao react like this. It was obvious that he really didn't want to talk about it. She didn't continue asking. Duga Mabao seemed to be the same as Rongxiu. They were tight-lipped about many things about her. Unless she recalled it herself, they wouldn't take the initiative to reveal it. So far, she had only recalled a very small part of it, and it was all related to the college. As for Duga Mabao, she still didn't have any impression of it. "Since you've recalled all this, then, let's strengthen your training," Duga Mabao suddenly said. Chu Luiyue was stunned. "What?" Duga Mabao glanced at her. "You and Rongxiu each took first place on the Azure Cloud leaderboard because you were on par with each other back then. However, after such a long time, you've experienced so many things. It's almost like you've started from scratch. Rongxiu, on the other hand, has never neglected his training. With his current strength, it's not impossible for him to surpass your ranking on the remaining two leaderboards. It's just that he didn't do that." "Buzz!" Duga Mabao waved a small hand. A chessboard with a faint glow floated in midair. "If you don't want to be left behind too far, come and practice." As he said that, he looked at Chu Luiyue meaningfully. "I've said it before. As long as you're strong enough, whatever you want to remember and know will come to you." Chu Luiyue gritted her teeth and walked to the chessboard. Come. Since she could take first place on the Azure Cloud leaderboard back then, she could do it now. For the next few days, Chu Luiyue's days were very regular. During the day, she sparred with Rongxiu. In the evening, she played chess with Duga Mabao. At night, she brought Dumpling to Thousand Wine Mountain. Perhaps it was because everyone in the academy knew that she lived with Rongxiu and was highly regarded by Rongxiu. Therefore, no one fought with her for the position of the spring. Every time she went, there would be a spot reserved for her. Of course, there were also some people who tried to strike up a conversation with her. They wanted to find out more about Rongxiu, or they wanted to use her as a bridge to get closer to Rongxiu. However, Chu Luiyue did not pay much attention to these people. If they asked too many questions, she would say that Rongxiu did not like her. Everyone was afraid and did not dare to pester her. Moreover, because they knew that she had Rongxiu behind her, they were angry but did not dare to show her any displeasure. This made Chu Luiyue's days in the academy much easier. Apart from this, she continued to study the new grade 9 pill recipes that Elder Wanzhong had sent her. Comparatively speaking, this was the easiest. Because she moved to Rongxiu's residence, there was no one else on Juing Mountain, so it was much more convenient. When she cultivated, she had more freedom. In a short period of time, Chu Luiyue's strength in all aspects increased by leaps and bounds. In the blink of an eye, it was the beginning of the month again. Although Chu Luiyue had been here for more than 2 months, because many things had happened in between, this was the first time she participated in the beginning of the month examination after officially becoming a student of the academy. She had already passed Elder Wanzheng's test, so it didn't matter whether she was tested or not. The key was the Azure Sky Proclamation. Early in the morning, almost all the elders and students of the academy had gathered at the Azure Sky Plaza. There was a hubbub of voices, and it was very lively. Many people were eager to give it a try. They wanted to compete on the Azure Cloud rankings. When Chu Luiwei arrived, she saw Eldebo Yin and the others standing on the Dongwang Bell Tower at a glance. Chu Yu, you're finally out. At this moment, a familiar shout came from the crowd. Chu Luiwei turned her head. It was Luo Shi and the others. The one who spoke was Zhuo Sheng. He rushed to Chu Luiwei as fast as he could and sized her up with curiosity and excitement. How does it feel to cultivate with senior apprentice brother Rong Xiao? Can you get on the Azure Sky Proclamation today? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1225. He didn't lower his voice, and his loud voice attracted a lot of attention. Obviously, they were also very curious about this question. Chu Luiwei smiled faintly. The Azure Cloud leaderboard is filled with heroes. I'm just a new student. What can I use to compete? Zhuo Sheng clicked his tongue. I haven't seen you for a few days, but you're much more humble than before. Actually, Chu Luiwei wasn't too arrogant after coming to Lingxiao College. Otherwise, she wouldn't have only applied for the celestial physician position. However, she would always inexplicably bump into many things, causing her to become famous in the short span of 2 months. She had become a celebrity in the entire academy. Seeing Chu Yu's expression, Luo Shi was a little surprised. Chu Yu, are you really not going to try? Because of his relationship with senior Rong Xiao, many people in the college were actually suspicious of him. There were also many people who secretly mocked him. And the examination at the beginning of the month was undoubtedly the best opportunity for Chu Yu to prove his strength. But looking at him, he didn't seem to care. Chu Luiwei paused. It depends. She couldn't really not go for the examination. That would only attract more attention. But based on yesterday's situation, as long as she got close, she would definitely summon the Azure Cloud leaderboard. She had to think of a way to hide it. The examination went on as usual. The entire Qingming Square was very lively. Chu Luiwei walked to the celestial physician position and waited quietly. There weren't many people here, so Chu Yu's presence was very conspicuous. Some people would occasionally look in her direction. Chu Luiwei turned a deaf ear to them. At this moment, Elder Bo Yin finally waved his sleeve and summoned the Azure Cloud leaderboard. Wong, a tyrannical wave came. Chu Yu's heart skipped a beat, and she looked up. The crowd was quiet for a moment, and then they all looked up. Some were nervous, some were looking forward to it, and more were full of battle intent and eager to try. The examination at the beginning of the month officially begins. Elder Bo Yin gave the order. Everyone quickly got busy. However, Chu Luiwei didn't move. He only raised his head slightly and looked at the ascension rankings. Hundreds of names were neatly arranged on the black wall, emitting a lustrous glow. It was divine and powerful, and it carried a tyrannical pressure that could not be ignored. She looked at the top. That place was still covered in darkness. Almost no one knew that her name was hidden under the seal. Chu Luiwei slowly clenched his fists in his sleeves. This time, compared to the first time they met 2 months ago, his state of mind was completely different. Chu Yu, what are you looking at? Zhong Sun walked over and stood beside Chu Luiwei, following her line of sight. A look of understanding appeared in his eyes as he smiled. You still want to be on the list, right? He had overheard the conversation between Chu Luiwei and Luo Shi. Just as he had said, this teenage boy was the most hot-blooded of all. Even if he said that he didn't dare or didn't want to, there was still an unconcealable desire in his heart. Chu Luiwei smiled and didn't say anything. At this moment, a cry of surprise suddenly came from the side. Chu Luiwei and Zhong Sun both turned to look. It seems like someone won the Xian Master competition. Zhong Sun muttered. Chu Luiwei looked at the familiar face behind the crowd and narrowed his eyes. Lin Qifei. At this moment, he was standing in a competition venue with a pale face and a forehead full of sweat. The young man opposite him was sitting on the ground, spitting out blood and looking dispirited. There was a chessboard between the two of them. She didn't need to look to know that this was a match between Xian Masters, and the winner was Lin Qifei. Everyone was also shocked by this unexpected outcome and discussed animatedly. He won. He actually won? The other party is a famous figure on the Ascension rankings. Doesn't this mean that he replaced him and ascended the Ascension rankings? I remember that he's only ranked 98th on the Xian Master ranking. There's still many people competing for this ranking. Isn't it normal for someone to win? You don't know about this. The one who just won the competition is called Lin Qifei. He's only been in the academy for 2 months and is a true freshman. Freshman? Really? There aren't many people who can ascend the Ascension rankings after such a short time in the academy. I've never heard of this Lin Qifei before, but I didn't expect him to be so powerful. Lin Qifei didn't seem to care about the surrounding voices and cupped his hands at the other party. Thank you for going easy on me, senior brother. The young man's face was red and white, and he was extremely embarrassed. Going easy on me? I went all out. I didn't give in at all. In this battle, he had lost completely. He forced himself to stand up. Junior brother, you don't have to be humble. I'm inferior. With that, his face burned even more, and he quickly turned to leave. An elder in charge of supervising the assessment chuckled. You're Lin Qifei, right? You're indeed young and promising. Congratulations. With that, he waved his sleeve, and the young man's name on the Ascension rankings gradually disappeared and was replaced by Lin Qifei's name. Lin Qifei heaved a sigh of relief when he saw his name. He cupped his hands at the elder and smiled. Thank you, elder. Why are you thanking me? If you want to thank someone, you should thank yourself. It's because you're outstanding enough that you can ascend the Ascension rankings in such a short time. That elder clearly admired Lin Qifei and patted him on the shoulder. Continue to cultivate well in the future. Strive to reach a higher level. Lin Qifei responded respectfully. He was neither servile nor overbearing. His humble and reserved manner won the praises of many of the elders beside him. They had seen countless people and had sharp eyes. Lin Qifei was extremely talented. Even in the entire academy, he was definitely one of the best. Most importantly, his personality was also good. He was calm and not arrogant. As long as everything went smoothly, his future would definitely be bright. Lin Qifei left the arena. Many people in the surroundings looked at him with envy. There aren't many people who can ascend the Ascension rankings within 3 months of entering the academy, right? I don't know about anything else. I only know that he's the first person to make it onto the rankings among the new students. I've always said that Chuyu is the strongest among the new students. Looking at it now, that might not be the case. I think this Lin Qifei is better. In addition, Luo Yinlin's sister, Luo Shishir, is also extremely talented. I think it won't be long before she can ascend the rankings as well. Isn't she much better than that Chuyu? I'd like to see if that Chuyu can ascend the rankings today. All sorts of voices filled the entire arena. Qifei, you're good. As soon as Lin Qifei came down, a strong man came over from the side. I already said that you would amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. Sure enough, that Chuyu can't be compared to you at all. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1226. Lin Qifei smiled faintly. His clear eyes were calm, and he looked as aloof as ever. Senior brother is too kind. I'm a mystic cultivator, and he's a celestial physician. There's nothing to compare. He didn't really care about this matter. I just think that kid is too good at bluffing. He's only been in the academy for 2 months, but almost everyone knows about him. Many people say that he's the most outstanding one among the new students, but I don't think so. Just now, I heard quite a few people from the celestial physician side say that Chuyu doesn't seem to have the heart to compete for the Azure Sky role this time. Most likely, he knows that he's not qualified. He might as well give up. Lin Qifei shook his head. If he really is someone who doesn't live up to his reputation, then Holy Son, senior brother Rongxiu probably wouldn't think so highly of him. Although he didn't have much interaction with Rongxiu, he had seen that man's grace and bearing at the birthday banquet. To be able to catch Rongxiu's eye, that Chuyu definitely wasn't someone to be trifled with. I forgot that you're also a member of the tribe under the Yuntian Tower. That youth shrugged and didn't say anything else. However, he still disapproved of Lin Qifei's words. He only thought that Lin Qifei was worried about offending Rongxiao, so he said that on purpose. Lin Qifei knew that he had misunderstood. His lips moved, but he didn't explain anything in the end. His personality had always been like this. As long as he did his own thing well, he couldn't be bothered to care so much. When he thought of this, he raised his eyes and glanced at the celestial physician's side. There was quite a distance between them, and there were quite a few heads in the middle. He couldn't see much from where he stood, and he could barely make out a tall and slender figure. Even though he could only see half of the person's face, that extraordinary aura made him stand out like a crane in a flock of chickens. It immediately attracted people's attention. That youth stood alone, upright and clean. He raised his head slightly, as if he was looking at the azure sky roll, but also as if he was deep in thought. Lin Qifei took a few glances and retracted his gaze. A faint trace of doubt flashed across his eyes. That person said that she wanted to come to Lingxiao College, but he hadn't seen her until now. He didn't know if she would come or not. The news of Lin Qifei's appearance on the azure sky roll had caused quite a commotion. Many people looked at him curiously after hearing the news. Many of them wanted to see who was the most among the newly recruited students to see. Who was the most? Of them. Now, Lin Qifei was the first one on the list. If Chuyu couldn't go up, he would inevitably lose some face. And Lu was at to the S. Elder Wanzheng looked at him with a smile. Chuyu, who do you want to challenge? He was asking about the celestial physician on the azure sky roll. In Elder Wanzheng's opinion, his disciple was already a 9th grade celestial physician. Although she couldn't be compared to those at the top of the roll, it wasn't a problem for her to challenge those at the bottom. If it was any other student who had just broken through to become a 9th grade celestial physician, Elder Wanzheng wouldn't be so confident. But this person was Chu Luwei. Everything seemed to be possible, because her alchemy skills were very smooth and skillful. Although she had just broken through to become a 9th grade celestial physician, she wasn't bad at all. Therefore, Elder Wanzheng was excited. He was waiting to see his disciple get on the azure sky roll. However, Chu Yue's answer surprised him. Master, do I have to choose? Elder Wanzheng was stunned. Why, you don't want? Chu Luwei pursed her lips. Based on my current strength, I'm afraid I might not win. So, why don't we wait a little longer? Elder Wanzheng opened his mouth in shock. What was going on? Chu Yu really didn't want to challenge the azure sky roll, but he had already broken through to become a 9th grade celestial physician. Moreover, with his talent and spirit energy in this area, he might have a chance to win. But now, you've thought it through? Elder Wanzheng was still in disbelief. In the academy, the azure sky roll was the belief of countless students. They studied and cultivated diligently just so that they could occupy a place in this world. It was fine if they were weaker, but Chuyu obviously had a chance to do it. Why did he reject it? This is a rare opportunity. Elder Wanzheng glanced at the other elders who were standing not too far away, and he looked a little troubled. Chu Yue's heart skipped a beat. She suddenly remembered what Elder Bo Yin said yesterday. Elder Wanzheng had already spread the news that she had broken through to become a 9th grade celestial physician. As if to confirm her guess, Elder Wanzheng coughed and lowered his voice. Disciple, it's not that I want to make things difficult for you, but I've already made a bet with them. Look, even if you don't have the confidence to win, why don't you give it a try? Even if I lose, it's not a bad idea to show those old fogies that Chuyu has broken through to the 9th grade. Why would he give up just like that? I'll definitely be mocked when I go back. Chu Luwei was speechless. Disciple, have you forgotten the promise you made with me? Elder Wanzheng looked at Chu Luwei with a pleading look. They had made a promise to get on the azure sky roll as soon as possible. Chu Luwei was silent for a moment. It was indeed a great temptation to have all the herbs she wanted. All right. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1227. Hearing Chu Yue's answer, Elder Wanzheng was delighted. Which one do you want to challenge? The last batch on the celestial physician list are all ninth grade celestial physicians. In other words, Chu Luiwe could challenge anyone. Chu Luiwe looked up. I want to challenge senior brother Tang Rue. Elder Wanzheng followed her gaze and looked over. Yes, the 100th on the celestial physician list. Why did this child become more cautious after a few days? Elder Wanzheng stroked his beard. Could it be that she was traumatized by being locked in Min Mountain some time ago? Are you sure it's him? Chu Luiwe nodded slightly. Seeing that she had made up her mind, Elder Wanzheng agreed. So what if I'm ranked 100? Anyway, this was the first time. It was good to have a good start. Tang Rue. Elder Wanzheng looked at a young man in the crowd. He looked a little over 20 years old. He was not tall and had a round body. His face was as white and round as dough. With a smile on his face, he looked very amiable. Greetings, Elder Wanzheng. He was standing at the side, so he naturally heard the master-disciple duo's words clearly. He knew that he had become Chu Luiwe's challenge target. Tang Rue, give Chu some advice. Elder Wanzheng said. Tang Rue nodded and said with a smile, yes. After that, he looked at Chu Luiwe and smiled even more politely. Junior brother Chu, please. Chu Luiwe raised her hand. Senior brother Tang Rue, please. Jiuhong Mountain. Halfway up the mountain, Rong Xiu stood in front of the door with his hands behind his back. He looked in the direction of the Dongwang Bell Tower. Although he couldn't see the situation in the Qingming Square from here, he could see the master roll because the Dongwang Bell Tower was tall enough. She wanted to take the test. A young and childish voice came from inside the room. Although childish, it had its own dignity. It was not to be underestimated. Rong Xiu nodded. As long as she's in the academy, she can't avoid this. Her reputation in the academy had spread, and her every move would be watched. It would be strange if she didn't go to the master role. Duga Mabao snorted. According to her current strength, wanting to break through that layer of restriction and let her name see the light of day again is simply wishful thinking. But it's her name is her name, and her power. Rong Xiu smiled lightly, turned around, and looked into the house. If you're worried, why don't you do it yourself? Ma Bao snorted. Didn't you already make preparations for the Ascension rankings? Is there even a need for me? Rong Xiu smiled noncommittally. It's what I should do. He was to love. Qingming Square was divided into many small areas as the competition venue. Chu Luiwe and Tang Rue were standing in one of the areas. There were not many people at the celestial physician's side, and it was always very spacious. But at this moment, there were many people around the two of them. Other than the celestial physician students, many mystic masters and martial artists also ran over. Chu Luiwe rubbed her temples as her head hurt. It seemed that she was really famous in Lingxiao College. Junior brother Chu, please. Tang Rue took out the cauldron. Chu Luiwe followed closely behind. The surroundings quieted down. The two of them took out the herbs and put them into the cauldron to refine. Tang Rue had seen Chu Luiwe refining pills before and knew that she wasn't weak, so he didn't dare to underestimate her. From the very beginning, he had put forth 120% of his energy. Chu Luiwe didn't think so much and just started refining pills in an orderly manner. Although she could successfully refine a 9th grade pill with her current strength, she still needed to put in a lot of effort to win this competition. She waved her wrist and put the herbs into the cauldron one by one. Red flames burned fiercely. The unique, bitter fragrance of the herbs gradually spread. After watching for a while, Elder Wanzheng exclaimed in surprise, this kid didn't seem to be refining the previous pill. If he guessed correctly, he seemed to be planning to refine the essence-strengthening pill. Although this essence-strengthening pill was also a 9th grade inferior pill, it was better than the previous one in all aspects. Of course, the corresponding requirements were also much higher. This was one of the prescriptions that Elder Wanzheng gave Chu Luiwe a few days ago. This kid is too reckless. Elder Wanzheng couldn't help but murmur. Chu Yu hadn't been in possession of this prescription for long. He might not have fully understood it, but he took it out for the competition. Whether or not he could refine, it was still a question. But the competition had already begun, and the bystanders could only wait and see. It wasn't Chu Yue's first time refining the essence strengthening pill. When she had just broken through to become a ninth-grade celestial physician in her previous life, the first pill she refined was the essence strengthening pill. So, this was one of the pills she was most familiar with. When Elder Wan Zheng tested her before, she didn't choose this because she didn't want to expose too much. And the prescription of the essence strengthening pill was among the things he sent a few days ago. Now, it was logical for her to refine it again. The prescription had been deeply engraved in her mind. The order of putting in each herb, as well as the strength and time needed to refine it. She could perform it perfectly without even thinking. Her movements were smooth and beautiful. Tang Rui inadvertently raised his head and glanced over, and his heart immediately tightened. This kind of technique, this kind of ease, how did it look like a celestial physician who had just broken through to become a ninth-grade celestial physician? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 1228. Many of the onlookers were also shocked. Although the news of Chu Luiyue fusing pills had spread throughout the academy, she was only an 8th-grade celestial physician at that time. But now, the strength she displayed was clearly that of a 9th-grade martial artist. After a short silence, the crowd became noisy. Is this Chu Yu really a 9th-grade celestial physician? I've been breaking through for a year, but my technique isn't as smooth as his. Me too. And his control of the fire is also very accurate. How did he refine so many herbs at the same time? After all, he's someone who caught Elder Wan Zheng's eye. How can his talent be bad? No matter how unpleasant the words of others were, Chu Yu didn't care at all and shook them off in minutes. A while ago, when he competed with Lu Zian, he was indeed an 8th-grade celestial physician. In such a short time, not only did he break through to 9th grade, but his strength in all aspects has increased so much. Sigh, if only I had half of his talent. The students who were also celestial physician saw it the clearest. The spiritual energy that Chu Luiyue displayed was indeed incomparable to that of an ordinary person. They had no choice but to admit defeat. With senior brother Rong Xiu's personal guidance, it's naturally different. Someone said ambiguously, but this voice was quickly drowned out by the discussion of the crowd. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that Chu Luiyue was indeed capable. There was no doubt that he was a 9th-grade celestial physician, and it was very likely that the pills he refined were also quite good. Even if he lost in the end, there wouldn't be so many doubts. Time passed slowly. The martial artist and Xian master assessments were also carried out in an orderly manner. Luo Shishir and Zhua Sheng passed smoothly, especially Luo Shishir, who improved rapidly and had already broken through to the middle of 9th grade. Although Luo Yinming's performance was not bad, there was already Lin Qifei in front of her, which instantly dimmed the light of the others. Even Luo Yanlin had to admit that this newcomer, Lin Qifei, was indeed shockingly talented. Compared to others, he was not inferior. After the assessment, Luo Shishir and the others also went to the celestial physician's side to watch the match between Chu Luiyue and Tang Rui. The atmosphere became more and more tense. Everyone quieted down as they silently watched the scene before them. It was as if their hearts were being hung up. Wong. A ripple came out from Tang Rui's medicinal cauldron. Many people's eyes lit up. Tang Rui was the first to form the pill. Within the medicinal cauldron, a round medicinal pill had already condensed. Following the roasting of the flames, the medicinal fragrance also became more and more intense. Sensing this movement, Chu Yue's eyebrows twitched slightly. He raised his head to take a look, and a glimmer of light flashed through his eyes. This aura, middle 9th grade. Suddenly, an exclamation came from the crowd. That's a level 9, mid-grade medicinal pill. Everyone was in an uproar. Tang Rui had been hanging at the 100th place on the Azure Cloud roll for some time, and his alchemy level had basically remained at the same level. Unexpectedly, he was already able to refine a level 9 mid-grade medicinal pill. Just relying on this alone was enough to make his ranking continue to move up a lot. He's hiding his strength. Someone suddenly sighed with understanding. I really didn't expect that Tang Rue, who usually looks so amiable, had already broken through in secret. When Tang Rue heard this, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He was indeed able to refine a level 9 mid-grade medicinal pill long ago, but for various reasons, he had never revealed it to the public. Even on the Azure Cloud roll, he only let himself hang at the 100th place and didn't continue to move up. Originally, he wanted to wait until he could refine a level 9 mid-grade medicinal pill or a higher level medicinal pill before officially challenging it. He didn't expect to be chosen by Chu Luiyue to participate in such a competition. In fact, if he hadn't seen Chu Luiyue's skillful alchemy technique just now, he didn't intend to reveal his true strength. But now, in order to stabilize his ranking, he had to go all out. Chu Yu will definitely lose this time. Although the level 9 mid-grade medicinal pill is only a small level higher than the level 9 mid-grade medicinal pill, there's a huge gap between the two. To cross it is extremely difficult. Looking at Tang Rue's skillful appearance, he should have broken through for a while, but that Chu seems to have just ascended the level 9 celestial physician steps not long ago. What's there to compare? Isn't this bullying? Huh. Don't forget one thing. To be able to make Tang Rue show his true strength, it means that the opponent is enough to make him vigilant. And this person is Chu Yu. That was only a 16-year-old youth. For a moment, the way everyone looked at Chu Luiyue changed again. After Elder Wanzhong was surprised, he was relieved. Tang Rue's strength was stronger than before, and the winner of this competition was probably already decided. After all, Chu Yu was refining a level 9 mid-grade medicinal pill. However, as long as his disciple could successfully refine a level 9 medicinal pill, nothing else mattered. He thought silently in his heart, "Disciple, don't let me down." At this moment, Chu Luiyue suddenly stopped moving, took out a few medicinal herbs from the universe ring, and put them in the medicinal cauldron one by one. "What's that?" Elder Wanzhong was stunned for a moment, and subconsciously moved forward to take a look. But with a hurried glance, he could barely recognize that those seemed to be medicinal herbs. But why did Chu Yu suddenly put these things in? In the prescription, he didn't write these herbs. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1229. Based on his understanding of Chu Yu, this was definitely not a mistake in remembering the prescription or putting in the wrong herbs. The only explanation was that Chu Yu had changed the prescription himself. What was this kid thinking? Elder Wanzhong could not help but grind his teeth. Prescriptions of this level were all extremely complicated. Even if the dosage of one of the herbs was changed, it could lead to the failure of refining the pill, let alone changing the prescription and adding in several herbs. His lips trembled, and he swallowed the words in his throat with great difficulty. Now he could only wait and see. Not only Elder Wanzhong, but many other celestial physicians present also noticed that something was wrong. Chu Yu is planning to refine the energy cultivation pill, right? But why did he put in the green lotus seed just now? Not only that, the 4 herbs he put in just now were not in the prescription. I really don't know what he's trying to do. With Elder Wanzhong and Senior Rong Xiu's personal guidance, logically speaking, he shouldn't have made such a low-level mistake, right? Look at his calm expression. It's obvious that he did it on purpose. Many people were puzzled. Regardless of their level, they all understood that the prescription could not be changed at will, let alone in such a tense battle. This Chu Yu's guts were truly abnormally big. Some people secretly shook their heads. The herbs used in the energy cultivation pill are extremely mild. When a cultivator takes it, it can strengthen their foundation, stabilize their mind, and benefit their qi. But the herbs that Chu Yu put in just now were extremely strong. Isn't this clearly going to destroy the pill? I think there's no point in continuing this competition. Unfortunately, I thought that his performance was good just now. But changing the prescription at the last minute is really a big mistake. Some people were whispering. Obviously, they had already lost hope in Chu Luiwei. Hearing those words, Luo Shishir's heart hung in the air. Although she was not a celestial physician, she knew such common knowledge. As a ninth-grade celestial physician, Chu Yu definitely knew this, but why did he do it? Zhuo Sheng shook his head regretfully. I think Chu Yu is going to lose this round. Luo Shishir pursed her lips. Perhaps he has his own ideas. He has just become a ninth-grade celestial physician. How can he change prescriptions at will? Although Zhuo Sheng had always felt that Chu Yu was extremely talented, prescriptions were the foundation of a celestial physician's alchemy. Luo Shishir was silent for a moment and looked at the young man on the field. He stood tall and straight with one hand on top of the cauldron, controlling the temperature of the crimson flame inside. His other hand was still continuously putting in the remaining medicinal herbs. He looked calm and composed. I don't think he changed the prescription all of a sudden, Luo Shishir murmured. Looking at Chu Yu's smooth and natural appearance, it was as if he should have placed those medicinal herbs in. Zhuo Sheng shrugged. That group of celestial physicians already said that he was refining the energy pill. There were many people who knew about this prescription, and they all said that Chu Yu had changed the prescription himself. Were they all wrong? Luo Shishir did not say anything else. Seeing her expression, Zhuo Sheng's heart moved. He knew that she was worried about Chu Yu, so he comforted her. Sai, you don't have to be too worried. After all, this is only the first round, and the opponent is a senior on the Azure Sky roll. Even if he loses, it won't be a big deal. After all, everyone can see that he is indeed a ninth-grade celestial physician. Luo Shishir wanted to say something, but stopped. Although she said that there were many people in the academy who were waiting to see Chu Yu make a fool of himself. If he really lost, then not only would he be ridiculed, but he would also implicate Senior Rong Xiu and Elder Wan Zheng. Would Chu Yu really not care about winning or losing this round? No matter what the others said, Chu Luiwei did not take it to heart. The reason why she put in so many herbs was actually because she was following her own prescription. Yes, she had previously improved the prescription of the energy pill. Celestial Physician had perfected the prescription of every pill after countless attempts. The amount of each medicinal herb, the method of extraction, the control of the flame, and even the order in which it was put in had strict requirements. Once one made a mistake, it could lead to the failure of refining the pill. Of course, Chu Luiwei would not joke about such things. She waved her wrist lightly and finally put in the last medicinal herb for extraction. After all the medicinal herbs were prepared, it was time to form the pill. Chu Luiwei took a deep breath and urged the force in her body to surge out crazily. Boom! The flames in the cauldron suddenly rose. All the medicinal herbs were gathered together. The medicinal herbs he put in are too strong, and it is extremely difficult to merge with the other medicinal herbs. This time, I'm afraid he won't even be able to form the pill. A low murmur of discussion came from the crowd. Some people were already bored and turned to leave. However, at this moment, a violent collision sound suddenly came from Chu Luiwei's cauldron. Dong! The sound was loud and heavy, and it spread far and wide. Many people's expressions changed. Was this about to succeed? Sure enough, in the next moment, they saw a perfectly round pill appear in the red flames. A rich medicinal fragrance spread out. Elder Wan Zheng took a deep breath, and his eyes lit up. This aura, it was indeed the aura of a successfully refined origin-enhancing pill. Moreover, there was a different fragrance faintly hidden in it, which made the entire origin-enhancing pill smell even more fragrant. In an instant, the fragrance entered the lungs, and the whole body felt comfortable. His whole person seemed to be much more energetic. Elder Wan Zheng looked at Chu Luiwei with shining eyes. The medicinal herbs that he put in just now had clearly merged perfectly. Moreover, if he guessed correctly, the grade of this origin-enhancing pill was Bang. Tang Rui's pill was finally refined. He leaped up and grabbed the medicinal pill back, put it into the jade box. Almost at the same time, Chu Luiyue also slammed her hand on the cauldron. A pill flew out. She waved her hand, and a red force flew out. In the blink of an eye, it transformed into a giant net, blocking the medicinal pill. Her feet moved slightly, and she also quickly kept the pill. The two of them, one in front and one behind, finished refining the pill. Tang Rui frowned slightly. Although he had successfully refined a 9th-grade pill, he didn't know why. But when he saw the calm expression of the young man opposite him, he faintly felt a trace of uneasiness in his heart. Even if he hadn't seen Chu Yu's pill with his own eyes, he knew that it was definitely not simple. To be able to successfully refine the pill after changing the prescription, it was already enough to explain too many problems. He hesitated for a moment, but still took the lead and handed over his pill. Elder Wanzheng, please take a look. Elder Wanzheng took his pill and then looked at Chu Luiyue with a trace of excitement in his eyes. Chu Yu, yours. Chu Yue's fingers moved slightly, and she still handed over the item. Elder Wanzheng's hands each had a jade box. He held his breath and opened Tang Rui's first. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1230. A reddish-brown pill lay quietly in it. 9 lines, bright and dazzling, were coiled on it. Only the last line was slightly dimmer. It was indeed a 9th-grade pill. Elder Wanzheng nodded and smiled. Tang Rui, you should have broken through for a while, right? You hit it well. Looking at the quality of this pill, it was definitely not something that could be refined for the first time. Tang Rui smiled a little embarrassedly. His white dough-like face seemed even rounder. Elder Wanzheng has good eyesight. I can't hide anything from you. Elder Wanzheng nodded, suppressed the excitement in his heart, and opened Chu Luiyue's jade box. On the bright red pill, 9 lines could be seen clearly. Elder Wanzheng looked at the 9th line, and his breathing stagnated. This was also a 9th-grade pill. Although he had expected this result, Elder Wanzheng was still extremely shocked when he saw it for himself. Not long ago, Chu Yu had refined his first-grade 9 medicinal pill under his watch. And now this kid could actually successfully refine a 9th-grade pill. There seemed to be a river rushing in his chest, as if it would rush out in the next moment. Even if he was used to all kinds of big scenes, he still couldn't control his excitement at this time. Tang Rui also saw the pill in the jade box. He couldn't help but be stunned, and then smiled bitterly. Junior brother Chu Yu's talent is really amazing, and his strength is superb. I heard that when you first came to the academy, you were only an 8th-grade celestial physician. It's only been 2 months, and you can already refine a 9th-grade pill. He sighed and cupped his hands at Chu Luiyue. I'm ashamed of my inferiority. Tang Rui's words spread in the square. Some of the noise disappeared in an instant. Almost everyone was stunned on the spot and couldn't react for a while. What did Tang Rui say? Chu Yu also refined a 9th-grade pill. How is this possible? Chu Yu even changed the prescription. How could he successfully refine the energy cultivation pill and raise it by a grade? Chu Luiyue smiled. Senior brother Tang Rui, you flatter me. I was just a little bit lucky. Tang Rui shook his head and smiled helplessly. Luck? Luck was the last thing a celestial physician needed when concocting pills. He had never heard of anyone who relied on luck to successfully refine a 9th-grade medicinal pill. To be able to do this, it proved that Chu Yu had real talent and strength. Junior brother, you're too modest. Tang Rui sighed. Previously, he had also heard many rumors about Chu Yu, and like many others, he even felt that Chu Yu did not have any strength at all, and it was only by chance that he had so many fortuitous encounters. But after today's match, he finally understood that those rumors were true. Thinking about it, what kind of people were Elder Wanzheng and Rong Xiao? Those who could catch their eyes were naturally not mediocre people. Elder Wanzheng took a deep breath and looked at Chu Luiyue. His eyes were filled with admiration and surprise. Middle 9th grade. He reached out and patted Chu Luiyue on the shoulder. Chu Yu, very good. Originally, he only wanted to let those people see how outstanding his disciple was. But he did not expect that Chu Yu's performance was actually so outstanding. It was many times better than what he had expected. He carefully looked at the 2 medicinal pills again, and then frowned slightly. His expression seemed to be somewhat conflicted. The 2 of you have refined pills of the same grade, and the quality is equally matched. This match is considered draw. Everyone was in an uproar. A draw? Didn't that prove that Chu Yu did indeed have the strength to ascend the Azure Sky rankings? But Tang Rui was ranked 100. Between the 2 of them, only one could ascend. Of course, according to the strength that they had displayed, they should be able to be ranked at the front. But then, they would have to continue to challenge higher ranks. Tang Rui suddenly cupped his hands towards Chu Luiwei and chuckled. This Azure Sky rankings should have been ascended by junior brother Chu Yu. Although I refined pills of the same grade as junior brother Chu Yu is only 16 years old. Just this point alone has already surpassed me by too much. Everyone had different expressions, but no one refuted, because this was one of the rules of the Ascension rankings. If the 2 of them were of equal strength, then the younger one would be ranked at the front. Chu Yu had sufficient confidence to ascend the Azure Sky rankings. Elder Wan Zheng actually didn't care much about whether Chu Luiwei could ascend the Azure Sky rankings or not. In any case, everything that he had displayed was enough to prove his excellence. This was already enough. He thought in his heart. Actually, from the beginning, he shouldn't have treated ascending the Azure Sky rankings as the goal of testing Chu Yu. With this child's natural talent, he should strive for a better ranking. Elder Wan Zheng glanced at Tang Rui with admiration in his eyes. Tang Rui, although you will fall out of the Azure Sky rankings after this match, but with your current strength, you can definitely continue to challenge those on it. Tang Rui nodded respectfully. This student understands. Elder Wan Zheng looked at Chu Luiwei and raised his chin with a smile. Kid, go. Place your hand on the Azure Sky rankings and inject a strand of origin power. Your name will appear. Chu Luiwei's fingers curled. The Azure Sky rankings, what's wrong? Seeing that Chu Luiwei didn't move for a long time, Elder Wan Zheng couldn't help but ask. Chu Luiwei shook his head and finally walked toward the Celestial Physician rankings. Countless gazes fell on her. Envy, jealousy, admiration, surprise. Chu Luiwei ignored them all. She stood still one step away from the Celestial Physician rankings. As long as she stretched out her hand and let her name appear, she would ascend the Azure Sky rankings. But would her name really appear? Chu Luiwei held his breath and finally raised his hand. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1231. Her white palms slowly approached and finally touched the black wall. Black and white. The 2 extreme colors contrasted against each other, and the names on the wall sparkled with light, almost forming a painting. Quiet and brilliant, solemn and majestic. A cold touch came from her palm. Chu Luiwei's blood seemed to be boiling, flowing quickly in her limbs and bones. Her heart seemed to be tightly gripped by something. Everyone felt that she should be proud, joyful, and full of glory at this moment. But in reality, she was so nervous that she couldn't even hear the sound around her. All she saw and heard was the honor roll of green clouds in front of her. Yesterday, she also stood here. That familiar fluctuation seemed to still be surging in her heart. She carefully moved a strand of force and injected it into the honor roll of green clouds. Buzz! A faint buzzing sound suddenly entered her ears. Chu Luiwei's heart jumped. She almost wanted to withdraw her hand. But in the next moment, that sound quickly disappeared, as if it had never appeared. Chu Luiwei was stunned. She quietly waited for a while, and that sound indeed didn't sound again, and even the fluctuation that should have appeared didn't appear. Then, a ray of light appeared in her palm and rushed upwards. She immediately looked up. That ray of light stopped at the last name on the honor roll of green clouds. Then, The name Tang Rue quietly disappeared. Her name replaced it. When she saw the words clearly, her hanging heart finally settled down. Because that name was Chuyu. The thing she was most worried about didn't happen, and this made Chu Liuyue's heart calm down. She slightly raised her head and looked at the highest point. There it was still dark. That hidden name didn't appear. Everything looked normal. She lightly exhaled. The surrounding crowd was silent. No matter how much criticism and suspicion they had before, it all disappeared at this moment. There is nothing better to prove a person's strength than winning a competition like this and officially entering the honor roll of Green Clouds. Although this matter seemed so unbelievable, but it still happened. On the Dongwang clock tower, Elder Bo Yin stroked his beard and nodded in satisfaction. This Chu Yu is indeed a promising talent. Vaguely, she had some of the vigor of that girl back then. Both of them were equally good at causing trouble, and both of them were full of spirit energy. She also had astonishing talent as a mystic cultivator and martial artist. Seems like Bo Yin, you have high hope for this Chu Yu. A voice came from behind Elder Bo Yin. Elder Bo Yin turned around and smiled. That's right. You just came back, so you don't know much about him. This kid is very powerful. For Rongxiu to think so highly of him, he must be quite talented. A middle-aged man walked over, looked down, and nodded. It does look good. However, Elder Meng is quite critical of him. Have you been to Pengmin Mountain? Elder Bo Yin asked in shock. Shang Yusin grinned. Do you even need to ask? If Elder Meng finds out that I'm back and didn't go over immediately, I'll be in big trouble. Elder Bo Yin nodded in agreement. That's true. However, you said that Elder Meng is dissatisfied with Chuyu? Could it be that this kid did something out of line when he was locked up in Pengmin Mountain? Shang Yusin stretched out a finger and shook it as a meaningful smile appeared on his face. No, I just haven't seen anyone who can so easily arouse Elder Meng's emotions, and he can't forget it. That's why I'm curious. To be honest, Elder Meng isn't dissatisfied with Chuyu, but more like curious. Shang Yusin recalled what Elder Meng said before and touched his chin. Even I want to meet this Chuyu personally. He glanced at Elder Bo Yin. He has only been in school for 2 months, and most of the time, he was locked up in Pengmin Mountain. Such a person hasn't appeared for several years, right? He's quite capable. Elder Bo Yin smiled. He's Wanzheng's precious disciple now, and Wanzheng loves him very much. Don't mess around. How can that be considered messing around? Many students want to get my guidance, but don't have this chance. Shang Yusin didn't care. If he's outstanding enough, it won't be a problem to deal with me. Elder Bo Yin laughed out loud. Shang Yusin suddenly thought of something and asked, Oh right, the divine weapon from Gray Feather's Abyss has been brought back, right? Elder Bo Yin's expression became a little strange. Yes. Shang Yusin's eyes lit up. Where did you put it? I've been thinking about it for a long time, and now that I've brought it back, you have to let me study it properly. Elder Bo Yin raised his eyebrows. It's no use begging me for this. It's not with me. If it's not with you, then where is it? Shang Yusin was stunned. Such an item, logically speaking, should belong to the dean after it was brought back. But now that the dean wasn't around, Bo Yin was naturally in charge. Elder Bo Yin raised his chin at the youth below. Yes, it's with him. Shang Yusin couldn't help but laugh. Huh? What kind of joke is this? That kid, that thing recognized him as its master. Elder Bo Yin explained leisurely, and was satisfied to see the man's expression change quickly and brilliantly. Shang Yusin closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Good kid. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from LoveNet. Chapter 1232. Elder Bo Yin snickered in his heart. Shang Yusin had been thinking about the divine weapon in Gray Feather's Abyss for many years. He had always wanted to bring it back to the academy so that he could study it properly. However, he did not expect that the divine weapon had already recognized him as its master when he came out of seclusion for just a few months. It was not easy to get close to a divine weapon that had recognized its master. Shang Yusin's previous plan was completely ruined. How could he not be angry? However, you don't have to make things difficult for Chuyu because of this. In fact, this was just a coincidence. After that, Elder Bo Yin told Shang Yusin everything that had happened from start to finish. During this time, Shang Yusin's expression kept changing. He wanted to interrupt Elder Bo Yin a few times, but he held himself back in the end. However, it was obvious that this explanation could not make him feel better. After all, he had been thinking about that divine weapon for many years. The moment it appeared, it was taken by a brat in the blink of an eye. It would be strange if he could remain calm. Actually, as a weapon refiner, you should know that this kind of thing depends on one's ability, but it also depends on one's luck. Elder Bo Yin sighed. That divine tool didn't have an artifact soul, and Chuyu just happened to throw out one of his high-grade divine tools. The sword's soul forcefully barged in and turned that thing into hers. The most important thing was that the sword's soul shouldn't have been able to suppress that divine tool, but it still succeeded in the end. This can only mean that the divine weapon chose him. This kind of thing was really something that others could not be envious of. Humph! Shang Yusin snorted coldly. Sooner or later, I will go and see what that brat is capable of. At this moment, Chu Luiwei still did not know that someone was thinking about her. Seeing that the name that appeared on the celestial physician list was Chuyu, her mood instantly lightened up. She stared at the name for a moment before she turned around and walked back to Elder Wanzhong. Master, what you said before still counts, right? Elder Wanzhong could not help but laugh. I knew that you would be thinking about this. Don't worry. Since I have said it, I will not go back on my words. I will definitely do what I promised you. Isn't it just some points and herbs? To be able to cultivate such an outstanding disciple, he couldn't be happier. How could he have the heart to feel distressed? Here. With that, Elder Wanzhong waved his hand. A dazzling stream of light flashed. Chu Lua caught it. Taking a closer look, her heart skipped a beat. This was Elder Wanzhong's green jade token. Did he just throw this thing to me? Just as this thought flashed through Chu Liuyue's mind, he heard Elder Wanzhong's heroic shout. As a reward, I'll give you 200,000 points this time. In addition, for the next 3 months, all the medicinal herbs that you take from the Medicine Wind Valley will be charged to your master's account. Chu Luiwei wasn't the only one who was shocked. Even the onlookers were stunned. 200,000 points. Some of them might not even be able to save up that much, even if they spent a few years in the academy. Chu Yu actually had it all of a sudden. For the many celestial physician students present, this was not what they envied the most. What they envied the most was actually the 3 months of free use of medicinal herbs from the Medicine Wind Valley. As a celestial physician, medicinal herbs were essential. And as the level increased, the medicinal herbs needed to refine pills would also become more precious. This also caused the cost of their cultivation to increase continuously. Some of them couldn't even afford it. Although they could also earn points by selling pills and so on, it was important to know that not every pill refinement would succeed. Sometimes, it was common to fail dozens or even hundreds of times. And this process would consume a lot of resources. Sometimes, even if they lived frugally, they would still find it hard to make ends meet. And now, Elder Wanzhong gave them 3 months of free use of medicinal herbs. How could they not be envious? Thank you, Master. Chu Luiwei smiled happily, her eyebrows curved. She was really happy. Originally, she thought that 1 month was the limit. Who knew that Elder Wanzhong would be so awesome and give her 3 months? With these 3 months, it would definitely not be a problem for her to break through to the peak of the 9th grade. Elder Wanzhong laughed out loud. Today's competition allowed him to see the huge hidden potential in Chu Luiwei. Under such circumstances, the only thing that a master could do was to guide her patiently and correctly and try his best to solve all the worries. He couldn't wait to see Chu Yu in 3 months' time. Chu Luiwei put the 2 jade tokens together, and a stream of light flashed quickly. Instantly, a string of zeros appeared on her black jade token. She raised her eyebrows slightly, and a smile appeared on her lips. Fortunately, she didn't reject Tang Rui's request to compete. Otherwise, she would have missed out on too many things. She put away her command medallion and respectfully returned the green jade command medallion. Tang Rui cupped his hands at her. Junior brother Chuyu, if there's a chance in the future, let's have a good spar. Chu Liyue also smiled back. Okay. Chuyu will be waiting for senior brother Tang Rui. Only then did Tang Rui turn and leave. He didn't find anyone else to challenge. Instead, he left directly. It seemed that he was planning to compete again next month. Chu Liyue thought for a while, and then looked at Elder Wanzhong. Master, since the competition here is over, I'd like to go back and continue to cultivate. Elder Wanzhong rubbed his chin. He wanted to ask about the prescription in detail, but seeing that Chu Liyue didn't seem to want to continue staying here, he swallowed his words. Okay, you've worked hard today. Go back and have a good rest. Elder Wanzhong patted her shoulder. It didn't seem appropriate to ask about the prescription in front of so many people. He would ask about it in detail another day when he had time. With Elder Wanzhong's permission, Chu Liyue bowed and quickly left. Unlike when she came, her steps were lighter now. Everyone thought that it was because she won the competition, so they didn't think too much about it. Now, they only envied Chuyu for having such a generous elder as her master. Of course, they also knew that Elder Wanzhong did this because Chuyu was worth it. Who wouldn't want such a talented disciple? All they could do was watch and feel envious. After Chu Liyue walked down the arena, Luo Shishir and the others quickly went up to congratulate her. Naturally, there were all kinds of praise and exclamations. Chu Liyue knew that the few of them had performed well, especially Luo Shishir. It wouldn't be long before she could successfully enter the warrior ranking. After they finished congratulating each other, Zhuosheng chuckled and asked, Chuyu is the first one among us to enter the master ranking. We must celebrate. How about we gather at Wine Mountain tonight? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1233. Chu Yuyue's heart skipped a beat. That's right, at the beginning of the month, Thousand Wine Mountain must be very lively again. Let's not go. Luo Shishir frowned and looked at Chu Liyue tentatively. Chu, you seem to be at odds with Thousand Wine Mountain. Every time he went, he would cause a lot of trouble. What if he got into trouble again? Chu Liyue thought for a moment and said, It's okay to go. After all, there shouldn't be anyone who would deliberately pick on me like the first time. After all, she still had Rong Xiao behind her. Chuyu, do you really want to go? Luo Shishir was still a little worried. Chu Liyue nodded and smiled. Everyone can go, why can't I? Don't worry, I'll be careful. And I don't want to be locked up in Pengmin Mountain again. Of course, she was talking about the recent times. After all, she had been warned when she came out a few days ago. It would be inappropriate for her to turn around and go back. It was better to wait for a while. Hearing her say this, Luo Shishir and the others were relieved. By the way, Chuyu, you're staying with senior brother Rong Xiao now, so we can't enter Zhong Mountain. We'll wait for you outside the mountain tonight. Okay? Chu Liyue nodded. Okay. Chu Liyue returned to Zhuheng Mountain and saw Rong Xiao standing with his hands behind his back from afar. She quickly flew over and stood in front of Rong Xiao. Rong Xiao's thin lips curled up slightly. Congratulations. Chu Liyue raised her eyebrows. Did you do something to the Qinyan leaderboard? You can't say that. Rong Xiao smiled. Although that is also your name, the power in your body now is different from back then. I just suppressed the call of that power to you. Of course, when you break through to your previous realm, the seal will naturally be lifted. Chu Liyue blinked. My previous realm? In his impression, she had always been a rank 9 warrior and did not continue to break through. However, since he was able to get first place on both rankings, then he should be a god-level expert. However, she still didn't know what level he was at. Rong Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. You will know when the time comes. At this moment, a cold and childish voice came from inside the house. Come in and cultivate. Chu Liyue rubbed his temples. Ever since she started living at Rong Xiao's place, no one came to disturb her. Her cultivation in all aspects had become much bolder and more convenient. Duga Mabao was even more so. Whenever he had time, he would get her to practice. He's here. Chu Liyue responded, took a deep breath, and walked in. After this period of training, Chu Yue's strength had actually increased a lot. At the very least, she would no longer be defeated by Duga Mabao after taking a few steps like before. However, this bit of strength was still far from enough in Duga Mabao's eyes. Therefore, almost every time he trained, he would display stronger strength than before. And Chu Luiwe was always suppressed. The only good thing was that under this extremely abnormal training, Chu Luiwe could clearly feel that her strength as a mystic master had improved by leaps and bounds. She was only one step away from becoming a level 9 mystic master. In the evening, the sparring finally ended. Looking at the chessboard that disappeared with a bang, Chu Luiwe let out a long breath. She looked outside at the sky and stood up. Big baby, I agreed to go to Thousand Wine Mountain with him previously. I'll be leaving first. Unexpectedly, Duga Mabao did not object. He looked up at her and said, "It's good to go. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network." Chapter 1234. The sun was setting. Chu Luiwe came out of Mount Jiuheng and saw Luo Shishir and the others from afar. She quickly went forward and met up with them. Zhuosheng looked behind her curiously and smacked his lips. "Chu Yu, you're on the Azure Cloud roll today. Doesn't senior brother Rong Xiu plan to celebrate with you?" Chu Luiwe raised her eyebrows. "You want me to invite him to Thousand Wine Mountain?" Zhuosheng's thoughts were seen through, but he didn't hide it and chuckled. "It's just that I respect senior brother Rong Xiu and want to see more of him, but I think he won't be very interested in this kind of thing." He was just saying that. He didn't really want Chu Luiwe to spend so much effort to invite Rong Xiu. Chu Luiwe remembered that a certain someone had told her not to play outside for too long before she left. She couldn't help but smile. Rong Xiu wasn't just not interested in Thousand Wine Mountain. He also had some opinions about her going to Thousand Wine Mountain. However, he saw that she really wanted to go, so he didn't stop her and let her do as she pleased. If senior brother Rong Xiu goes, I'm afraid everyone won't be able to have a good time. Chu Luiwe said. Many elders in the academy were much more polite when they saw Rong Xiu, let alone these students. If he were to go, he was afraid that everyone present would be extremely restrained. What else was there to say? Luo Shishir couldn't help but laugh. That's true. Many people in the academy admire senior brother Rong Xiu very much, but I'm afraid they won't even be able to say a complete sentence in front of him. Hearing this, Zhuosheng could only shrug his shoulders regretfully. Then let's go by ourselves. When they arrived at Thousand Wine Mountain, the sky was already completely dark. Only halfway up the mountain was a sea of bright lights and a boiling cauldron of voices. It was very lively. Chu Luiwe and the others had just arrived and attracted the attention of many people. The crowd fell silent for a moment. Although Chu Luiwe had been here many times before, today was different, only because she was ranked on the honor roll of Azure Sky. Dumpling ran out early and squatted on Chu Yue's shoulder. When it heard the gurgling sound of the stream, its eyes lit up and it became restless. If it weren't for the fact that there were so many people around, it would have rushed straight to the mouth of the spring. It looked up and rubbed its furry little head against Chu Yue's cheek. Its thoughts were clear as day. Chu Luiwe knew that it was waiting impatiently, so he lifted his foot and went up. Many people automatically retreated to the sides to make a path for her. Even though the 100th place on the Celestial Physician ranking wasn't considered a top-notch achievement, everyone in the academy knew that Chu Yu, who occupied this position, had only entered the academy for less than 2 months. Most importantly, he was only 16 years old. It was obvious that this kid's future was limitless. Even if he didn't consider the backing behind him, it was inevitable that people would be wary of him just by looking at his talent and temperament. When Chu Luiwe arrived at the mouth of the spring, there were already a few people standing there. There was a familiar face among them, Lu Yintong. However, before Chu Luiwe could say anything, Lu Yintong had already taken a step back and said, Chu Yu, you're here? I've already reserved this spot for you. You can use it. Chu Luiwe was stunned for a moment. Then he looked up and carefully sized up Lu Yintong. Unlike the previous few times when he had seen her, Lu Yinteng's expression now carried a rare hint of nervousness. It was as if she was afraid of doing something wrong, but there was also a hint of eagerness to please him. That's strange, Chu Luiyue thought to himself. Lu Yinteng's temper was irritable, and she had always been competitive. Otherwise, she wouldn't have hated her when her red-tailed phoenix was defeated by Dumpling. But why did it seem like she was a different person now? Senior Sister Lu. Actually, we've already fulfilled our bet. I'll do it myself from now on, so I won't trouble you. Chu Luiyue said. The punishment had been effective, and Lu Yinteng had offended many people because of it. In Chu Luiyue's opinion, this matter could be considered over. After all, her time was precious, and she didn't want to waste too much time on this kind of thing. She thought that Lu Yinteng would be relieved after hearing this, but she didn't expect her face to turn pale. She couldn't help but take a step forward and ask in panic and worry, "No trouble, no trouble. I did something wrong before. As an apology and compensation, this is what I should do. Junior brother Chuyu, please don't be polite with me. You're not still angry with me, are you?" Chu Luiyue's expression became even stranger. This what's going on? Lu Yinteng still wants to continue? But this matter seems to have more disadvantages than benefits for her, right? Shouldn't a normal person be happy to be able to escape from such torture? Who would be so reluctant to part with it? Chu Luiyue stared at her and realized that her expression didn't seem to be fake. She was even more surprised. She smiled. Senior Sister Lu, why would I be angry with you? Isn't this matter in the past? She didn't like to waste her emotions on this kind of thing. Lu Yinteng looked at the young man in front of her nervously. His appearance was clean and delicate. His eyes were clear, and there was a casual and gentle smile at the corner of his mouth. He looked harmless. It seemed like he really didn't care. Lu Yinteng secretly heaved a sigh of relief, but she also felt a sense of emptiness. In a short span of 2 months, their identities seemed to have completely reversed. When she first met this young man, she never thought that there would be a time when she would be submissive to him. That's good, she muttered softly, and then couldn't help but say, Junior brother Chuyu, I was too impulsive in the past, and that's why I did so many things that you didn't like. I hope you don't mind. I promise I won't do that again. I only hope that Junior brother Chu, you can let bygones be bygones. For a moment, Chu Luiyue wanted to ask Lu Yinteng if she was sick and had a fever. It was normal for her to want to let bygones be bygones. After all, Chu Luiyue had his own place in the academy now. Coupled with the support of a few people behind her, she had truly become a person that wasn't to be trifled with in the academy. Everyone was more or less afraid. But Lu Yinteng didn't seem to need to be so eager to please him, right? This didn't seem like something she would do. Senior Sister Lu, if you have something to say, just say it. Chu Luiyue sized her up and said. Lu Yinteng instantly felt as if she had been completely seen through. At this moment, she realized that Chu Yu was more intelligent and cunning than she had imagined. She clenched her fists tightly, and her nails dug into her palms. After hesitating for a while, she said, No, nothing. I just feel that I've gone too far in the past. So, if Junior brother Chu Yu needs my help in the future, just say the word. Before Chu Luiyue could reply, he suddenly heard a mocking voice from the side. Junior brother Chu Yu is now protected by Elder One Zheng and Senior brother Rong Xiu. Why would he need your help? Aren't you thinking too highly of yourself? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1235. The crowd fell silent. Chu Luiyue turned around and saw a familiar face. It was Liang Xiao. She and Jiang Ziyuan came side by side, and the words just now came out of her mouth. If Junior brother Chu Yu hadn't caught Senior brother Rong Xiu's eye, I'm sure you'd still be thinking about how to deal with him, right? You. Lu Yinteng's face turned pale. This Liang Xiao had never given her any face. They had fallen out with each other last time. Now that they saw each other again, they were naturally jealous. Do you think you can make up for what you've done just by saying a few nice words? Liang Xiao covered her mouth and smiled. Don't you think it's too late to apologize now? Do you think everyone is stupid and can't figure out your real intention? Isn't he just trying to get closer to senior brother Rong Xiao through Chuyu? Liang Xiao poked Jiang Jiwan's arm. Ziyuan, you know senior Rong Xiao very well. Why don't you tell him if he'll fall for it? Jiang Jiwan said lightly. He has always been cold and aloof. He won't take it to heart. Besides, she paused, glanced at Lu Yintong, and said with a hidden meaning. Besides, he hates it when others pester him. Even she, who had been infatuated with Rong Xiao for a long time and was the princess that the old patriarch of the Yuntian Tower had set his eyes on, didn't dare to do anything out of line. A few years ago, she had been working hard on her cultivation and didn't even see Rong Xiao's face. Last time at the Yuntian Tower, she barged in and was taught a lesson, let alone others. Lu Yintong clenched her teeth. Don't you dare slander me. I just feel sorry for what I did to Junior Chuyu, so... Before she could finish her sentence, she heard Liang Xiao's mocking laughter. Lu Yintong, do you believe what you just said? Lu Yintong could no longer continue. Her face was burning. Chu Luiyue, who was standing at the side, blinked and then realized, so it was because of Rong Xiao. Lu Yintong's change in attitude was simply too inexplicable. Sensing her gaze, Lu Yintong felt even more embarrassed. She finally turned around and left quickly. That back view, no matter how one looked at it, had the intention of fleeing. Liang Xiao crossed her arms and sneered. You really haven't given up on your evil intentions. Senior brother Rong Xiao had already said it so clearly, but he still dared to have such improper thoughts. He really didn't have the slightest self-awareness. On the other hand, Jiang Jiwan didn't seem to be so agitated. Her expression was relatively calm, and she only raised her eyes to look at Chu Luiyue. After pausing for a moment, she suddenly walked towards Chu Luiyue. When they finally stood still, the distance between them was only 3 steps. She gave Chu Luiyue a generous and appropriate smile. Junior brother Chuyu, thank you for what you did before. Jiang Jiwan was born very beautiful. Her body was slender, and her facial features were exquisite. Although it was night, under the illumination of the surrounding lights, she appeared even more lovely and moving. Her smile was pure with a tinge of gentleness, causing many people around her to stare blankly at her. Unfortunately, this trick was useless against Chu Luiyue. She also smiled. Deep in her black, jade-like eyes, there was a wave of calmness. Senior Sister Jiang, why are you thanking me? Jiang Jiwan saw that the young man in front of her didn't seem to be moved by her goodwill and couldn't help but feel a little dissatisfied. This Chuyu, why does it seem like I can't see through his thoughts? However, these thoughts only flashed through her mind, and all her emotions didn't show on her face. Her smile didn't change, and she said softly, naturally, it's to thank you for helping senior brother Rong Xiao block that blow. Although his strength is tyrannical, and generally there won't be any problems when encountering such things, but it's good to have junior brother Chuyu's help. Her eyebrows were tinged with a bit of worry, but the smile on her lips deepened, and her beautiful eyes were full of sincerity. I heard that this time he returned safely and wasn't seriously injured. If junior brother Chuyu wasn't quick-witted and went through the academy's barrier in time, I'm afraid the consequences would be unimaginable. Needless to say, junior brother Chuyu was punished to stay in Min Mountain for a month. For him, junior brother Chuyu sacrificed a lot. Chuyu's eyes moved slightly, and the corners of her mouth hooked up into a smile. Jiang Jiwan's words, on the surface, seemed to be praising her, but in fact, she was secretly mocking her for not knowing what was good for her, for violating the academy's rules and forcibly breaking through the barrier. In the eyes of most people, this was not something to be proud of after all. Unfortunately, these words didn't have any lethality to Chu Luiyue, because she didn't care about the opinions and criticisms of others at all. Moreover, staying in Min Mountain was quite enjoyable. Thus, after hearing these words, Chu Luiyue didn't get angry or embarrassed. Instead, she smiled even more brilliantly and pushed the boat with the current. Senior Sister Jiang, you flatter me. I only did something small that I could do. I really don't dare to claim credit. Moreover, Senior brother Rongxiu has already thanked me personally. I think senior sister Jiang doesn't need to do anything unnecessary, right? Jiang Jiwon's face instantly lit up. Chu Liwei didn't seem to notice and continued. I helped senior brother Rongxiu, not you, senior sister Jiang. I think senior martial sister Jiang should take back her words of thanks. Otherwise, it wouldn't be good to be misunderstood by others. Jiang Jiwon's heart burned with anger. Was Chu Yu slapping her face in front of everyone? She forced a smile and said, I grew up with His Highness the Holy Sun since we were young. We have a deep friendship, so there's no need to make such a clear distinction. In order to save face, she even changed the way she addressed Rongxiu. Oh, Chu Liwei interrupted her and said with a smile that was not a smile. When senior sister Jiang said that, I almost thought that senior brother Rongxiu's princess consort was senior sister Jiang. The smile on Jiang Jiwon's face finally couldn't be maintained. She could tell that this Chu Yu didn't plan to speak to her peacefully. He was young, but he had a sharp tongue. The atmosphere was awkward and cold. Everyone could hear the sarcasm in Chu Liuyue's words just now. That's right. At the end of the day, Jiang Jiwon didn't have any special relationship with Rongxiu. Well, why did she have to say thank you for him? Speaking of which, in the entire academy, wasn't Chu Yu the closest person to Rongxiu? What she said just now was really laughable. Jiang Jiwon took a deep breath. In fact, from the first time she saw this Chu Yu, she didn't like him very much. She didn't know where this feeling came from, but it lingered. Seeing the dumpling squatting on Chu Liuyue's shoulder, she narrowed her eyes and suddenly said, Junior brother Chu Yu, this contracted divine beast of yours looks rather familiar. She remembered clearly that Chu Liuyue also had an identical red-tailed phoenix. She suddenly thought of something and turned her gaze to Chu Liuyue. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1236. Red-tailed Red Phoenix? Chu Liuyue calmly turned his head to look at Dumpling and smiled calmly. It's not strange that senior sister Jiang looks familiar. After all, senior sister Lu has one, right? Jiang Jiwon was stunned and immediately frowned. No, that's not right. She felt that this red-tailed red phoenix looked familiar, and it was definitely not just because it was a red-tailed red phoenix. She had also seen Lu Yintong's red-tailed red phoenix before. Although they were of the same race, in reality, due to the difference in bloodline power and other reasons, it looked different from the one in front of her. She could clearly tell the difference between these two divine beasts. In comparison, the one in front of her was more like the one she had fought before. At first, she didn't feel it, but now that she was standing close and looking at it carefully, the more she looked, the more she felt that it was similar. Once this thought was born, it seemed to have taken root in her mind, and she couldn't get rid of it. No, your red-tailed red phoenix is different, she said, looking at Chu Liuyue with eyes full of scrutiny. Something was indeed wrong. According to Rongxiu's personality, it was impossible for him to value someone so much for no reason, and it was even more impossible for him to let her live with him, unless he had known this person for a long time. Moreover, their relationship was definitely not shallow. Jiang Jiwon looked at the youth in front of her carefully, trying to find even the slightest bit of hesitation and guilt on his face. However, there was none. From head to toe, the youth's expression was as usual. In the face of her interrogation, he actually laughed, with a hint of the mischievous and undisciplined aura of a youth. My contracted divine beast naturally can't be compared to those. There was a hint of pride in his laughter, full of confidence and natural ease in his voice. It was really hard for people to doubt him when he looked like this. Senior sister Jiang, if you like it, you can take a look more. This color is very beautiful, and it's rare to see it elsewhere. Jiang Jiwon didn't believe it and stared at the red-tailed red phoenix for a while. It squatted on the young man's shoulder. It was a furry little ball, and its whole body was red. From afar, it looked like a ball of fire. It seemed to have sensed Jiang Jiwon's gaze. It turned its head to look at her, then lazily buried its head in its wings. Only then did Jiang Juan discover that this red-tailed red phoenix seemed to be a little different from the one in her impression. The color of its feathers and eyes seemed to be denser than that one. Could it be that I was wrong? Chu Luiyue patted Dumpling gently. Go. Dumpling raised her head, her eyes sparkling. She rubbed her head against Chu Luiyue's face in a fawning manner, then quickly flew towards the spring. Because there were many people around, Dumpling restrained herself and only landed on a rock beside the spring. The spring water gurgled out, and her little head was almost buried in it. During this period of time, Chu Luiyue would bring Dumpling over whenever she had time. Therefore, this wasn't the first time many people had seen such a scene, so it didn't attract much attention. Chu Luiyue looked at Jiang Juan, who was deep in thought. Senior Jiang, is there anything else? If not, my friends and I will be going over there. Jiang Juan wanted to say something, but stopped. She wanted to ask her in detail, but in the end, she swallowed those words back. Xiao, let's go. With that, she turned around to leave. Liang Xiao looked surprised and hurriedly pulled her. Hey, why are you suddenly leaving? We just arrived. Jiang Jiwan frowned. I suddenly feel a little uncomfortable and want to go back and rest. Liang Xiao was even more puzzled. Uncomfortable? Wasn't she fine just now? Why did she suddenly become like this? Or was it because of what Chu Yu said just now that made her unhappy? After thinking about it, Liang Xiao felt that it was because of this. All right then, I'll go back with you. Jiang Jiwan shook her head. No need. You stay here. That's it. Don't ruin the mood because of me. Liang Xiao didn't really want to leave. After all, this was the day they could relax the most every month. If she left like this, it would be boring to go back. Then you'll be fine, right? Jiang Jiwan forced a smile. Don't worry. I could still do such a small thing. Then, she declined the request of a few young men to send her back and left alone. Liang Xiao looked at her back view and shrugged. Although she and Jiang Juan were best friends and had a good relationship, Jiang Juan still had reservations about her many times. She wasn't stupid, so how could she not see any clues? But there was no need to pursue this matter so much. People from aristocratic families like them knew what to say and what not to say. Although her talent wasn't top-notch, she still had a discerning eye. Liang Xiao quickly retracted her gaze and went to play with the others. Chu Luiyue looked at Dumpling, who wanted nothing more than to dive into the spring, and thought about staying in Thousand Wine Mountain. Dumpling only came here once every night, and after a period of time, there were obvious changes. If she could stay here for a month and completely awaken the power of her bloodline, what would it be like? After Jiang Juan left Thousand Wine Mountain, she quickly returned to her residence. After entering the room, she carefully closed the door and sat down at the desk. After thinking for a moment, she spread out a piece of paper and began to write a letter. After a while, a letter was written. She carefully folded the letter and stuffed it into the body of a prepared bronze bird. After injecting a stream of force, the bronze bird flapped its wings and flew outside. Under the thick night sky, the bronze bird's figure quickly disappeared. Jiang Juan clasped her hands in front of her and frowned. She was very suspicious of Chu Yu's identity. Also, Rongxiu's attitude towards him was very suspicious. After thinking about it, she decided to write a letter back to the Immortal Water Mausoleum and ask her father for help to investigate. If she found anything wrong with Chu Yu, she would expose it immediately. 9. Eternal Mountain. In the silence, the void vibrated. Then, a figure appeared in front of the house. Dressed in black, he was tall and straight. It was Rongxiu. From the looks of it, he had just returned from somewhere. He was about to walk forward when he suddenly paused and looked back. Under the dark sky, he could only see the undulating mountain range. Suddenly, a murderous intent flashed past his deep phoenix eyes. Swish! He waved his sleeve, and a stream of black force flew out. Very soon, the origin power returned with a bronze bird in tow. Rongxiu looked at the bronze bird and narrowed his eyes dangerously. Bang! There was a slight explosion. The bronze bird instantly shattered. A letter fell from it. Rongxiu raised his hand, and the letter fell into his hand. He opened it and glanced at it. With a slight movement of his fingers, the letter silently turned into powder. Then he took out a snow-white handkerchief and wiped his hands. A cluster of golden flames burned, and the handkerchief was quickly burned to ashes. He turned around and entered the house. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1237. 10,000 Wine Mountain. Time slowly passed, and gradually people began to leave. Luo Yinming looked at the sky and said, I have to go first too. Master just gave me a few Xian formations today and said that there will be an assessment in a few days. I have to hurry. Luo sure, and the others expressed their understanding. Although Elder Huafeng was amiable, he was actually very strict in this aspect. In addition, there was Luo Yinlin, who had always been outstanding. So as his younger brother, Luo Yinming naturally felt even more pressure. By the way, Chu Yu, when you have time later, I want to spar with you. Luo Yinming looked at Chu Luiyue and said sincerely. Chu Luiyue raised his eyebrows in surprise. Then, he thought that Elder Huafeng must have said something to make Luo Yinming have such an idea. She smiled and nodded slightly. Okay, actually, during this period of time, there have been all kinds of rumors about how Chu Yu passed through the Academy's barrier. But no matter which one it was basically confirmed that Chu Yu is also a Xian master. Luo Yinming had been by Elder Huafeng's side for the past few days, and had indeed heard him mention this matter a lot. Although Elder Huafeng didn't elaborate, it wasn't difficult to guess that Chu Yu is extremely talented as a Xian master. This made Luo Yinming a little curious, which was why she made this invitation. Luo Yinming smiled when he saw her agree. Then it's a deal. With that, he quickly left. Shuo Sheng couldn't help but turn around to size up Chu Luiyue and smile in surprise. To be able to make Yinming want to fight. Chu Yu, you're really amazing. Your level as a Xian master shouldn't be low, right? Chu Luiyue rubbed his chin. Not really, but thanks to my good master, it's still passable. Shuo Sheng and Luo Shishir naturally thought that the master she was talking about was Rongxiu, so they didn't ask further. After a while, there were fewer and fewer people on the mountain. Let's go too. When Luo Shishir said this, she deliberately stared at Chu Luiyue. She didn't want what happened last time to repeat itself. There could be 1 and 2, but not 3. No one knew what kind of punishment they would receive if they did it again, especially the one in front of him. Chu Luiyue smiled helplessly. He knew what she was worried about, so he could only raise his hands. All right. Let's leave now. Luo Shishir couldn't help but laugh. When she saw the young man's dark eyes, her heart couldn't help but tremble slightly, as if she had been hit by something. Her face heated up slightly, and she lowered her head. Chu Luiyue didn't notice her expression. He turned around and called out to a certain little thing that was already drunk and didn't know where to go. Dumpling, let's go. Dumpling shakily raised her head from the spring. Despite her reluctance, Dumpling forced herself to fly back. I wonder when I'll be able to relive those happy days again. It smacked its lips, closed its eyes, and began to digest the power it had devoured today. Just as they were about to leave, Chu Luiyue suddenly felt a strange fluctuation coming from his body. She was stunned, because this fluctuation was very unfamiliar. She stopped in her tracks and carefully sensed it. Sure enough, another fluctuation came over. Girl, the sword soul of the Long Yuan sword has almost completely fused with this sword. There's only one step left before it can be awakened. Taizu's voice suddenly sounded in her ears. Chu Luiyue was stunned. Taizu, what do you mean by that? Taizu explained, this sword soul is very powerful. This divine artifact grade is extremely high. Although it has already recognized you as its master, it is still not completely yours. Only after it has been tempered by Tianlei can it achieve sword soul fusion and forge the sword soul of the Long Yuan sword into a weapon soul. Only then can it be truly controlled by you. Chu Luiyue was stunned for a moment. So, you're saying that if I want to use this sword, I still have to trigger Tianlei and temper it. But with her current strength, it was impossible for her to do that. As if guessing her thoughts, Taizu said, "Don't worry. Just like last time, I'll help you lure Tianlei over. At that time, you just have to control that sword and help it forge a weapon soul. Because you're the owner of the Long Yuan sword, the sword soul will only listen to you. So, only you can do this." But Chu Luiyue was a little hesitant. Triggering Tianlei in the academy would definitely attract the attention of many elders. Moreover, this sword of hers was originally an item of the academy's ancestors. When the sword soul becomes a weapon soul, I can also escape from here. Taizu suddenly sighed. Chu Luiyue was shocked. What? Taizu, you mean you can come out of here? This was just a remnant of Taizu's consciousness. Logically speaking, when the Long Yuan sword recognized her as its master, it should have dissipated. But it didn't. And since then, Taizu had been residing in the Long Yuan sword, almost fusing with it. Chu Luiyue never thought that Taizu would have a chance of successfully escaping. Taizu sighed faintly. I never thought that this day would come. But ever since the Long Yuan sword recognized you as its master, the sword soul has become stronger day by day. Now that it has fused with that divine artifact, it's even more shocking. The moment it transforms into a weapon soul, perhaps, will be the moment when I can escape from here. A flash of inspiration flashed through Chu Luiyue's mind. Her heart beat violently. Taizu, she spoke with difficulty. Even she felt that every word she said was absurd and unbelievable. You're still alive? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1238. Of course, this alive wasn't referring to the remnant divine consciousness, but the real Shangguan Jing. No, if it could leave the divine artifact and survive independently, then it shouldn't be called divine consciousness. That was Taizu's real soul. Chu Luiyue's question made Taizu fall silent. After a while, the great ancestor let out a long sigh. I don't know either. His voice was much lower, as if he had aged a lot in an instant. It was mixed with the loneliness and lamentation of thousands of years, as well as a trace of confusion. This was the first time Chu Luiyue heard Taizu speak to her in such a tone. He seemed to really not know. I spent thousands of years alone in the Tianling God realm. There are indeed many things that I have forgotten, including my death back then. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. In the secret history of the Tianling dynasty, it had always been recorded that Taizu had tried to break through the shackles and become a god-level powerhouse, but he failed and died. After his death, the Long Yuan sword was left in the half-divine realm that he had painstakingly condensed as a supporting divine artifact. As for the great ancestor, it was only natural that he should have vanished into thin air in that failure. Chu Luiyue had always believed in this matter because what she had heard and seen before was exactly the same. Although she had secretly wondered why Taizu's divine consciousness hadn't dissipated after the Long Yuan sword recognized its master. But at that time, she didn't think too much about it. Until now, Taizu could actually be independent of the divine artifact. Moreover, Taizu even said that he had forgotten his death back then. How could a top powerhouse forget what happened at the end of his life? There was probably something wrong with this. Chuyu, Luo sure, and Shang walked for a while before realizing that Chu Luiyue wasn't following them. She turned around and saw that she was standing there alone, as if in a daze. Shang raised his voice again. Chuyu, what are you thinking about? We should go. Chu Luiyue finally regained his senses. He's here. As she spoke, she walked towards the two of them. What happened to you? Shang looked at her strangely. Everything was fine just now. How did it become like this all of a sudden? Chuyu, are you all right? Luo sure, frowned worriedly. Although the expression on Chuyu's face was still relatively calm, this kind of absent-minded appearance was extremely rare. Chu Luiyue closed his eyes and suppressed the waves in his heart. Don't worry, I'm fine. It's just that I suddenly thought of something just now and was lost in it for a moment, so I didn't follow you guys. Hey, what's the matter? Why are you so concerned about it? Zhuisheng's interest was immediately piqued. He grinned and asked mysteriously. Chu Luiyue smiled. It's nothing important. It's not worth mentioning. This meant that he didn't want to reveal it. However, Zhuisheng wasn't someone who wanted to get to the bottom of things. Seeing that Chu Luiyue didn't want to say more, he didn't continue asking. It's not too late to think about it when we get back. Let's hurry up and leave. If we're late, we won't be able to bear the consequences. Luo Shishir frowned slightly, but she didn't ask any more questions. The three of them continued to walk down the mountain. This time they left in time. When they reached the bottom of the mountain and walked out of the barrier, they vaguely heard the sound of wind and thunder coming from the top of the mountain. Chu Luiyue turned around to take a look. In fact, they couldn't see anything through the barrier. However, she seemed to be able to feel the imposing Tianlei falling down one after another. It was a pity that she couldn't stay here. She retracted her gaze, said goodbye to Luo Shishir, and left on her own. When she returned to Zhuheng Mountain, it was already late at night. However, the light in Rongxiu's room was still on. Rongxiu had just walked out his room. You're back. Chu Luiyue's heart warmed. She didn't know if it was because of Rongxiu's patience or something else. For a moment, she clearly felt a sweet and soft warmth surging from the bottom of her heart to her limbs and bones, enveloping her. She nodded. You've been waiting for me? Rongxiu's lips curled into a faint smile. Yes and no. I was looking at something quite interesting just now. Anything that caught Rongxiu's eye was definitely not an ordinary item. Chu Luiyue was a little interested. What is it? Rongxiu walked over and held her hand. Come with me. His warm and broad palm instantly wrapped around her somewhat cold hand. The familiar cold fragrance filled her body, making her feel more at ease and her whole body relaxed. She obediently followed Rongxiu into the room. After entering, Rongxiu brought her to the desk. Chu Luiyue immediately saw a book on top of it. The pages of the book were yellowed, and it seemed to be quite old. Is this the thing you're talking about? Chu Luiyue looked at Rongxiu strangely. Rongxiu raised his chin and smiled. Take a look first. Only then did Chu Luiyue pick up the book. However, when she held it in her hand, she was shocked to find that the book looked old and thin, but it was actually very heavy. If it wasn't for her physical strength, she might not have been able to pick it up. What is this? Chu Luiyue's voice came to an abrupt halt when she saw the cover, because there was a painting on it. It was a carefully drawn picture of a sword. It was simple, grand, solemn, and dignified. The lines seemed to penetrate the back of the paper, wrapped in a great force. Just a casual glance like this almost made one unable to breathe. However, this was not the most important thing. Because the sword drawn in this picture was clearly the divine artifact that she had obtained not long ago. Digression. September Peripheral Event Winners List 1. Star of Monthly Votes. Shui Li 142 by 2. Star Commentary. EUX 9 Memories of Qian 2. QQ Reading Star of Recommendation Votes. Dislike 150. Star Commentary. Ling Bao Yi Luoshi Down. Red Sleeves. Please join the group as soon as possible and find February to verify the peripheral events. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1239. She looked at Rongxiu in shock. This is the notebook left behind by that senior, said Rongxiu with a smile. It took me a lot of effort to find it. Although these words sounded like a joke, Chu Luiyue understood that it was extremely difficult to find this book. There were tens of millions of books in the academy. It was easy to imagine how much effort it took to find this book in a vast sea of books. Moreover, the academy had spent a lot of effort to get this divine artifact back. Everything related to it must have been strictly guarded. Rongxiu could even get his hands on this. Chu Luiyue held the book. Her fingertips could still feel the rough and heavy pages of the book. Something seemed to be surging in her chest. This thing, the academy wouldn't let it out so easily, right? You. How did you get it? Without that divine artifact, the existence of this notebook is meaningless. In the whole world, this notebook is only a true treasure in your hands. If they didn't give it to you, it would be meaningless to leave it on the shelf. So this thing isn't that difficult to get. Rongxiu said it casually, but Chu Luiwen knew that things weren't that simple. But Rongxiu obviously didn't intend to explain in detail. Even if she continued to ask, she probably wouldn't get anything out of him. I promised you before that I would bring this thing to you. Naturally, I won't go back on my word. Rongxiu said as he held her face and kissed her forehead. His breath was warm, as if it could make one's heart boil. Chu Luiwen looked up at him. Rongxiu. Her red lips moved slightly. She wanted to say something, but after thinking about it, she felt that words were so weak. This man would always stand by her side and give her everything she wanted. In the whole world, there were very few people who could do this. However, he did it. And from the beginning until now, he had never flaunted how good he was. It was as if all this was natural. How rare was it to have such a husband in this world? She reached out and grabbed the front of Rongxiu's shirt and pulled hard. Rongxiu cooperated and bowed slightly. Chu Luiwen kissed his lips. This kiss was unbelievably soft and sweet, dazzlingly sweet. After a while, the two finally separated. Rongxiu held her tightly in his arms and rested his chin on her shoulder. His voice was low and hoarse. Is this a reward? His voice still carried a trace of muddiness from his infatuation, and when it entered her ears, it practically instantly entered into the depths of her heart, causing her heart to tremble. No, Chu Luiwen closed his eyes. It's love. In the end, Chu Luiwen returned to his room. According to a certain someone, he wasn't sure what would happen if they stayed together under such circumstances. Therefore, Chu Luiwen went back obediently. Late at night, the surroundings were silent. Only the occasional rustling of the night wind through the forest could be heard, but it seemed even lonelier. Chu Luiwen sat cross-legged, holding the notebook in her hand. At this time, that frightening aura still didn't diminish at all. Chu Luiwen's gaze swept over it carefully. This was a sword. Some strange golden patterns were engraved on the scabbard, looking solemn and mysterious. The sword hilt was blue gold and carved into a dragon's head. Its eyes were deep, as if bottomless darkness. Just by looking at it like this, one would feel as if they were about to be swallowed by it. Further up was a round stem, smooth and clean, completely black, with a tassel hanging from the end. So this sword is also related to the dragon clan. Chu Luiwen murmured softly. If that was the case, it was no wonder that the sword soul of the Dragon Abyss sword could be successfully integrated into it. Of course, there should be Taizu's help in this to succeed in the end. She moved her mind. Flowing light flashed in front of her. In the next moment, a long sword suddenly appeared in front of her. It floated quietly in midair, but the surrounding space seemed to be slightly distorted by this terrifying aura. This showed how strong the power contained in it was. Chu Luiwen stared at the sword in front of her. It looked exactly the same as the one drawn in the notebook. However, because that book was an item from too long ago, although it was well preserved, it was still yellowed and old. It looked as if it was covered with a layer of grayish-yellow gauze. When this sword appeared in front of her, she could clearly feel the vast aura that seemed to come from a distant time and space. Everything was so fresh. Chu Luiwen flipped open the notebook. 3 vigorous and powerful words appeared on the title page. Red Cloud Sword. Chu Luiwen carefully flipped through the entire book bit by bit. When she finished reading the last page, she closed it, finally closed her eyes, and let out a long breath. So, the owner of this sword, who was also its forger, was Elder Fan Bei. Back then, Elder Fan Bei obtained a precious sword embryo and made up his mind to forge a peerless sword. In order to forge this sword, he went to the Dark Feathers Abyss and spent a full 3 months there, guiding Tianlei to temper it every day before finally forging it. Unfortunately, these 3 months had exhausted all his strength and blood essence. The moment Red Cloud Sword appeared, he was already a lamp that had run out of oil. In the end, he knew that he did not have much time left, so he simply took the blood from his heart and poured it on Red Cloud's sword. With his own life as a guide, he made it reborn and crossed the threshold of a venerable artifact. In the end, the sword was forged and he died. And this Red Cloud sword, before it could be born, fell in the dark feathers abyss together with it. For thousands of years, this sword was buried deep and never saw the light of day again. Until recently, when the dark feathers abyss was in chaos, the Lingxiao College elders realized that Red Cloud sword was about to be born. In fact, many people knew that there was a divine artifact buried in the dark feathers abyss. Otherwise, the Golden Wings sect and many other sects would not have sent so many people to fight for it. It was rumored that it was an Emperor divine artifact, but in fact, it was a real venerable artifact. Fortunately, this thing was snatched back by the Lingxiao College in the end, and not many people knew the true level of this divine artifact. Otherwise, it would have become a big trouble. This book was written by Elder Fan Bei when he was forging the Scarlet Heaven Sword in the past. It recorded every step of forging Red Cloud Sword, and also some of Elder Fan Bei's experience. However, because Elder Fan Bei died when this sword was just forged, he did not leave behind the incantation to use it. Thus, Chu Luiyue could only research it herself from the previous records. However, this level of divine artifact was extremely intelligent. As long as she could completely master it, this would not be a problem. Chu Luiyue put away the book and looked up at Red Cloud's sword in front of her. She took a deep breath and held the sword hilt. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1240. Then, she pulled with all her might. The Scarlet Heaven sword did not move at all. Chu Luiyue was stunned and took a closer look. This sword, it's not rusty. Why can't I pull it out? She gritted her teeth, increased her strength, and tried again. The Scarlet Heaven sword still did not react. The sword seemed to be firmly embedded in the scabbard. No matter how Chu Luiyue tried, she could not pull it out. After failing several times, Taizu's voice sounded faintly. "Girl, don't waste your energy. If you don't refine this sword, you won't be able to use it." Chu Luiyue suddenly came back to her senses. "What? Doesn't that mean that as long as I don't refine it, I won't be able to use this sword?" Taizu pondered for a moment and said seriously, that seems to be the case. All right, I forgot to tell you, because the Long Yuan sword's sword soul has been transferred to this sword, so from now on, the Long Yuan sword is useless." Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat, and she immediately summoned the Long Yuan sword. The black arrow was cold and heavy in her hand. She poured her force into it, but the Long Yuan sword did not have any reaction. The pressure of a venerable artifact is heavy, and it can easily crush the Long Yuan sword. If I wasn't here, the Long Yuan sword would have been destroyed the moment the sword soul was transferred. Taizu sighed. How can a venerable artifact be so easy to control? Chu Luiyue, so what was her situation now? The Long Yuan sword could not be used, and the Scarlet Heaven sword could not even be pulled out. She rubbed the space between her eyebrows with a headache. If that was the case, didn't that mean that she only had one path left? Girl, actually this is nothing. Anyway, with me here, I can help you trigger Tianlei, and you can also complete the tempering. Isn't this quite simple? Chu Luiyue, Taizu seemed to think too highly of her. But at this point, it seemed that there was no other way to solve the problem other than this. She thought for a moment. Then Taizu, please lend me a hand. Chu Luiyue walked out of the room and came to the top of the mountain. To trigger Tianlei, this place was naturally the most suitable. The only concern was that if the commotion was too big, it would attract the attention of many people's attention. But now, she could not care less. Besides, there's a barrier that Rongxiu set up outside Jung Mountain, so it should be able to hide it. Chu Luiyue found a relatively flat spot on the mountain peak, took out the star stone, and placed Qi Shao's sword on it. A translucent figure flew out. It was the Great Ancestor. Chu Luiyue glanced at Taizu's eyes. "Great Ancestor, why do I feel that your body seems to have become much more solid than before?" In the past, the great ancestor's phantom was filled with an illusory aura, but now there was a huge change. Liu Yuez's of God. Yes, I feel the same way. The longer he stayed with Chu Luiyue, the stronger his aura became. When they first met, he was almost in a state where he could disappear at any time. But now, he was getting stronger. He didn't know what was going on either. However, ever since the sword soul of the Dragon Abyss sword entered the Scarlet Heaven sword, he realized that he no longer needed to rely on it and could live freely. Chu Luiyue was more and more certain of her previous guess. This should be a part of Taizu's soul. It was just that 1,000 years had reduced his strength and destroyed his memories. That was why even he thought that he was just a remnant of his divine consciousness. Chu Luiyue thought for a moment. Suddenly, a thought flashed through her mind. If Taizu's soul was still there, then, when she refined Scarlet Heaven Sword's soul, did that mean that Taizu would have a chance to take over her body and come back to life? She took a deep breath and suppressed this thought. It would not be too late to think about everything after the refinement was completed. Girl, step back a little. Taizu stood in the air with a serious expression. Chu Luiyue took 5 steps back. Her eyes were fixed on the star stone and Scarlet Heaven sword that was placed on it. Taizu raised his hands, and the aura around him began to surge crazily. A powerful aura spread out in all directions. Soon, dark clouds gathered in the sky. The originally bright moon was covered by thick clouds, and the world became darker and darker. There were rolling mountains all around, and it was silent. Only the sound of the wind passed through the mountains, and the forest rustled. Chu Yueyue's heart seemed to be gripped by something, and her ears were filled with the sound of her heart beating violently. The wind and clouds whistled. Dark clouds surged. Finally, a bright bolt of heavenly lightning shot out from behind the accumulated layers of clouds. Then a second one, a third one. Chu Luiyue sucked in a breath of cold air. The speed of Tianlei's appearance was far beyond her imagination. Who knew how many Tianlei's tempering would be needed to refine a venerable divine weapon's soul? Such a scene was far from what she could compare to when she forged the Cloud Sky Copper Sword. Almost at the same time, Rong Xiu, who had just laid down, suddenly opened his eyes. He lifted the blanket and jumped down from the bed. He pushed open the door and looked toward the top of the mountain. Several Tianlei were circling in the sky, swimming wildly. He narrowed his eyes and then raised his hand. A golden stream of light flew out, transforming into countless light spots, and landed on the barrier outside Mount Jiong. The barrier strengthened again and completely concealed everything that was happening inside. Chu Luiyue was completely unaware of this, because all her attention was on the Tianlei that was about to land. In a short time, dozens of silver, snake-like Tianlei had gathered in the dark clouds. Most importantly, the number was still increasing. Back then, in order to forge the Dragon Abyss sword, I triggered a total of 81 Tianlei. Now that the Scarlet Cloud Sword is a venerable divine weapon, I don't know how big of a commotion it will cause. Taizu said in a low voice as he triggered the Tianlei. Chu Yueyue's eyelids twitched violently. The Scarlet Cloud Sword was 2 grades higher than the Dragon Abyss sword, and there was a huge gap between them. It was simply unimaginable to fill the gap between them. The Black Star Stone reflected the numerous Tianlei in the sky, and the stars flickered. Finally, when the stars covered it, the Scarlet Cloud Sword finally rose slowly into the air. It floated quietly above the Star Stone, and its entire body emitted a shocking aura. It had not officially started yet, but Chu Luiyue already felt as if her heart was being heavily pressed by something, and even breathing became difficult. I wonder what kind of scene it would be when the Tianlei landed. Just as this thought flashed through her mind, she heard a loud sound coming from the sky. Boom! A thick and dazzling bolt of heavenly lightning struck down in an instant. It went straight for the Scarlet Cloud Sword. Chu Luiyue was almost blinded by the dazzling light. Following that, loud rumbling sounds rang out one after another. Boom! Boom! It was those Tianlei that struck down one after another. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1241. Chu Luiwei had never seen such a scene before. Countless Tianlei surged over crazily as if they were free. Like a huge silver sword, it broke through the clouds and slashed down from the sky. Looking up, it was as if it was going to split the heavens and earth. The light was dazzling and the sound was earth-shattering. The powerful impact almost sent Chu Luiwei flying. She immediately stabbed the long yuan sword into the ground. She clenched her fists tightly to prevent herself from being swept away by the wind. Her clothes fluttered in the wind, and only the crazy whistling sound was left in her ears. The great ancestor's expression was unprecedentedly serious and solemn, because from a moment he saw those Tianlei appear, he knew that today would be a tough battle. He was afraid that this would be the most powerful Tianlei that he had ever summoned in his life. After those Tianlei fell, new Tianlei quickly appeared. Taizu's power was quickly consumed in the crazy and terrifying tempering process. At such times, time seemed to be especially difficult to endure. Just as Chu Luiwei felt that her face was about to be cut by that terrifying power, the scarlet cloud sword finally moved. A golden light appeared on the scabbard. It flashed quietly. The surrounding Tianlei's light was very dazzling, but when this golden light appeared, it did not cover up even a fraction of its brilliance. Chu Luiwei saw clearly that it was the golden pattern on the scabbard that exploded with bright light. "Girl, go!" Great Ancestor bellowed. Chu Luiwei immediately leaped. She grabbed the hilt of the scarlet cloud sword. Countless silver lights flashed on the scabbard. The hilt was cold, but the power of the Tianlei was boiling. The two extreme powers merged together. Chu Luiwei gritted her teeth and grabbed the sword tightly. A familiar aura gradually surged into her heart. It was the sword spirit of the Long Yuan sword. In order to refine it into an artifact soul, Scarlet Heaven Sword had to withstand the beating of these Tianlei. For some reason, the Tianlei people avoided Chu Luiwei when they passed by him. This relieved her of a lot of pressure. As the Tianlei continued to fall, a seal on the scabbard seemed to be peeling off. The runes that had been silent for 1,000 years finally began to emit their original golden light. Chu Luiwei gripped the hilt of her sword with both hands, allowing the violent energy to surge around her, but she remained unmoved. A wisp of origin power quietly poured into Scarlet Heaven Sword. Time seemed to have become particularly unbearable. After an unknown period of time, Chu Luiwei's hands had become numb from the terrifying power. The power in his body was almost impossible to suppress, and there were faint signs that it was about to go berserk. However, Tianlei was still striking down. It seemed like it would never end. Chu Luiwei forced his eyes open and looked up. In the bright silver light that filled the sky, she almost couldn't see anything clearly. This meant that Tianlei's attack was far from over. She gritted her teeth and tried her best to circulate the origin power in her body. More and more power was poured into Scarlet Heaven Sword, and the golden runes on the scabbard became clearer. She could clearly feel that the subtle connection between her and Scarlet Heaven Sword was also constantly strengthening. As long as she persevered until the end, she would definitely succeed. However, at this moment, a sudden and strange fluctuation came from behind her. Chu Luiwei looked back, and through the flickering light, she was shocked to see Taizu kneeling on the ground, as if his strength was exhausted. His body became much more illusory, as if he would be blown away by the wind at any time. His face was even paler, and his originally spirited face seemed to have aged a lot in an instant. Chu Luiwei's heart clenched. "Taizu," she shouted nervously. "How are you?" Hearing her voice, Taizu forced himself to stand up. I'm fine. It's just that there's too much Tianlei, and I've consumed too much energy. Hearing the weakness in his voice, Chu Luiyue became even more worried. Although Taizu did not have a physical body, his strength was tyrannical. This was the first time she had seen him so weak. It was really worrying. Boom, boom, boom. Tianlei was still falling one after another, and Taizu's aura was weakening at a speed visible to the naked eye. Chu Luiyue quickly glanced at Scarlet Heaven's sword. Only 1/3 of the runes on the scabbard had lit up. This couldn't go on, Chu Luiyue thought calmly. Looking at Taizu's current state, definitely wouldn't be able to hold on until the end. Scarlet Heaven's sword was a venerable artifact. In order to refine the sword soul into an artifact soul, the number of Tianlei needed was astonishing. It was indeed impossible to complete it with Taizu's strength alone. Chu Luiyue didn't want to disregard Taizu's life for this. Taizu, please stop triggering Tianlei immediately. Chu Luiyue quickly made a decision and shouted loudly. Of course, Taizu refused. No, what kind of treasure was a venerable artifact? It was a great opportunity for this girl to be lucky enough to obtain it. Many people wouldn't even be able to see it once in their lifetime, but she was so lucky to obtain it. How could he not cherish it? Even if he had to exhaust the last bit of his strength, he had to help her to the end. Then Taizu calmed down, raised his chi, and flew up. In the gloomy sky, several more bolts of heavenly lightning appeared. The wind howled, and Taizu's figure seemed to be on the verge of collapse. Chu Luiyue watched from below, extremely nervous and distressed. She knew very well that Taizu was already close to his limit. If he didn't stop, the consequences would be unimaginable. This was not Taizu's remnant divine sense, but his true soul. If anything happened to him today, he would really be consigned to eternal damnation. Chu Luiyue's chest seemed to be burning with flames, and a trace of scarlet appeared in her eyes. Taizu, please return. Taizu stood in midair, his body straight. He didn't look back. In the dark and dazzling world, he seemed to be alone. As time passed, Taizu's aura became weaker and weaker. Gradually, no more Tianlei appeared in the sky. Taizu's heart sank. According to his realm, even if he risked his life, he wouldn't be able to summon enough Tianlei. Boom! The last Tianlei struck. Taizu's face turned pale. He finally turned around and looked at Chu Luiyue. His expression was apologetic, and his lips trembled. It's Taizu's fault for being useless. Chu Luiyue shook her head. You've done your best. Liu can't thank you enough. At this moment, only half of the patterns on Scarlet Heaven sword lit up. Chu Luiyue closed her eyes. When he opened his eyes again, there seemed to be undercurrents and flames burning in his black, jade-like eyes. She gripped Scarlet Heaven sword tightly and immediately stood up. Most of her body had already been affected by that terrifying power, and she couldn't feel anything. At this moment, she was only relying on her last bit of willpower to hold Scarlet Heaven sword tightly. Taizu let out a long sigh. Unfortunately, it's a waste of energy this time, Chu Luiyue said, not necessarily. Taizu was stunned. What other ways do you have? Chu Luiyue narrowed her eyes and looked in a certain direction. Tianlei. There was a place that had plenty of places. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.